gentlemen, we welcome you to episode number 56 of the Primetime Rundown right here on the Eastern Observer, presented to you by Black Cats NYC, alongside my guys Ian Schraier and Rob DeLuca. I'm Joey Jarzynka. We cannot thank you enough for joining us here on this Friday evening, the Friday of Memorial Day weekend. Happy Memorial Day, everybody. The end of May rolls around. It's also our final Friday episode of the spring season and really of the year, if you will, because we will be moving to a new night. We will not tell you until the end of the show. And the date is still to be determined, but we know the night. We'll let you guys all figure that out later on in the show. But this show is presented to you by Black Cats NYC. Their newest album, Free Cake, is out on Apple Music, Deezer, YouTube, SoundCloud, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, Pandora, and Spotify. Play loud, and Free Cake is out now. Ian Schraier, good to see you, sir. How are you?
Good, doing good. It's Memorial Day weekend. It's the unofficial start of summer, so just very excited and ready to pop open my pool and just ready for the hot weather to be here.
Oh, look at that. Popping open the pool. Rob DeLuca down at the Jersey Shore. Seaside Heights, New Jersey is the location of Mr. Rob DeLuca. We missed you a couple of weeks ago when I was actually down in your home state in Brick.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I mean, look, sometimes you just got to take a little vacation and you come back and you feel much better. And I just feel rejuvenated, ready to bring my best to tonight's show. We've got a great one as always, and it's going to be an exciting 2 hours.
We've got a ton of good stuff here to talk about here this evening. We've got a pair of guests here, one of which is backstage right now. Vinny Amadeo, coordinator of athletic marketing and special events for Adelphi University, worked very closely with our good friend Ian Schraier here. He is also the NBA guru and most notably the New York Knicks guru. So let's get him in. And also before, or actually right after him, we're going to have one of the New York Islanders people on, rather, and I keep saying people, one of the experts for the New York Islanders, a podcast host, editor-in-chief of NYI Hockey Now. He is also the co-host of Hockey Night in New York and contributor on the sports section of the Associated Press. So really good show upcoming here. Let's get Vinny in now, and here we go. Vinny, and I know that the Knicks are on right now, so I don't want to take so much of your time because, you know, in about probably 5 minutes, you're going to tune us out anyway. But welcome to the show, sir. How are you? And really, the big thing here is that how are your Knicks doing? And not even how are your Knicks doing, but how good does it feel for you to say that you're a Knicks fan right now?
I'm doing well, man. It's an exciting time to be in the tri-state area because I don't consider Knicks fans just New York. I think we kind of span through New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut.
Rob DeLuca might have some. He might have some other thoughts from that, but go on.
No, he's right.
Brooklyn fan, but there's very few of those. So, but yeah. No, it's an exciting time to be a New Yorker. It's an exciting time to be a Knicks fan, and just being in the arena for those first two games, even though we took the L in the first one. The energy was unbelievable. Like it was something that I've never been a part of. And I'm still young in my career, but I don't know if, unless they make it to the finals, I don't know if you top that moment, like being out of the playoffs for those 8 years. It was unbelievable.
And not only that, but so many people have considered the Knicks a legitimate circus. And it's not even, it's mainly the one side of Madison Square Garden where the Knicks reside has been an absolute circus for the better part of roughly about 10 years. And, or rather between like 5 and 7, if you will, that would be probably the better guesstimate. But then the other side, you've got the Rangers on the other side, and they're finally coming back. But, now we're starting to see Tom Thibodeau, who's back here, who is really, really should have been, in my opinion, the coach of the year. And I'd love to get your take on that one. Mm-hmm. But also Nerlens Noel, by the way, for those that are watching us and not the Knicks, we truly appreciate that, but I doubt that. Nerlens Noel is a defensive guru, and he's not starting tonight. Taj Gibson is, and that could be big in terms of some veteran presence on the floor at the Garden. I'm sorry, no, they're in Atlanta tonight.
Yeah, they're in Atlanta tonight. Yep.
They're in Atlanta tonight. Talk about a little bit of that, Vinny. What do you see with this new Knicks team?
I mean, I think Taj and Noel, they're kind of interchangeable, right? So
Yeah.
I think they both bring a stable presence in the low block over there. So I don't mind seeing Taj or Noel in the starting five. If we're going with, getting off to a hot start and bringing stability to the beginning of the game, which the Knicks haven't really had throughout this series, I think it's a no-brainer to start D Rose and Taj Gibson. They just bring that grittiness, that playoff experience, and they know Thibodeau. They know exactly what he wants. They know his X's and O's. They know his game plan. So to me, it's a good move. Taj, I was just saying last game, I was texting a few of the guys that I work with. He had a plus 23. His plus minus was 23. He had 6 points and 7 rebounds. Like, to have a plus minus of 23 and have only 6 points on 3 or 4 shooting, like, you got to be pretty special, So he's making an impact on the game in more ways than just scoring the bucket or even blocking shots. Like, his communication on the defensive end is so key. And that's something that Noel has as well. So having Noel come off the bench, hopefully he ignites that second unit with Obi and Quickly and Burks and them. But I like it. I like the starting five. And to go based off the Coach of the Year stuff, I'm not mad about it. I love the way that Tibbs has turned this ship around, but Monty did a fantastic job in Phoenix. I mean, you can't take that away from him. So for Tibbs to lose out to him, it is what it is. I don't think Tibbs is kind of like taking that as a hit. I think he knows what he's done in New York and what he's going to do in the future. So next year.
I think the biggest thing here is that you've seen this whole season, and before we get to Ian Schraier, because this is someone also that has has been starting to really get into the Knicks now that they're in the playoffs and getting good, and I want to get Ian's response to that. But in terms of the whole season and seeing this Knicks team getting more than 5 wins, I mean, come on, let's be honest here. Talk about the season as a whole and what you first off, I want to know what you do also to get your foot in the door with the Knicks. That's something else. And then also talk about this season too as a whole and seeing that, more than 5 win season and really how it has unfolded. What do you think or from your eyes?
Yeah. So I guess to start off with how I got my foot in the door. I was an undergraduate student at Adelphi University, and that's Al Troutwig's alma mater. Not many people know that, but he's a graduate of Adelphi. Yeah. And I noticed that he was teaching a class, and it was the first time that he was ever going to do that. And I've been a huge Knicks fan my entire life, so I'm like, hey, I watch this guy every game, pregame, halftime. Like this is a familiar face. I need to get in front of him. I need to talk to him. I need to learn from him. He's a great resource to have. So I luckily got a seat in that class because it filled up quickly. No pun intended there. No, but it filled up quickly. And Al, I mean, he played a pivotal role in getting my foot in the door in the Garden. If it wasn't for him initially, I would never even be able to say that, I've been to however many games at this point and paid to do it. I don't have to pay to go anymore. I get paid to go to Knicks games, which is something I never thought I'd be able to say. But taking his class was really what ignited it. And then a man named Ken Weprin, he was a statistician for the Knicks for 25 years. And he came to Adelphi on a whim just to do our shot clock and announce some games. And someone kind of tapped me on the shoulder and they were like, hey, that guy, you should talk to him. He's been a statistician for the Knicks for a while now. I was like, oh, really? So I just introduced myself and Kenny got my foot in the door extra quick. And it wasn't even through the Knicks. He got my foot in the door through the Long Island Nets, which I do with Ian. And through that, I just kind of kept building my relationships and extending bounds. And I stayed in connection with the PR department there as well. So that helped me. But and then the second part of your question, 5 wins, that's rough. That's a tough statement. But yeah, prior to the D Rose trade, honestly, I didn't have high hopes for the Knicks this year. I'm going to be honest with you. I think we were 2 games below 500 when we traded for D Rose, and that completely flipped our season. Just having him as a stable presence in the locker room, you can't put a price tag on that. I was talking to Ian in the office the other day. The Knicks traded pennies for him.
Yeah.
Dennis Smith Jr. He's still a project. Like that's not a secret. He's still a project and a second round pick. How many guys have you heard besides maybe Draymond Green that's come out of the second round that's been a really impactful player in the NBA? Not many. So yeah. So you have a former MVP candidate who's completely transformed his game in a way that I don't think anybody thought he could. And he's extremely efficient. He shoots the mid-range game extremely well. His three-point shooting has been completely elevated from what he used to be early in his career. And that's really what changed the Knicks. Thibodeau obviously coming in and instilling his philosophies and his mindset, that got the ball rolling, but bringing in D Rose and then signing Taj Gibson, in the middle of the season, that just ignited the entire city. It really
wild. It's really wild, Vinny, because now we're starting to see, a little bit of the Chicago Bulls from old, or Chicago Bulls of old type thing. And, it's kind of what he was trying to do in Minnesota. Obviously, it imploded on him. Yeah. But Ian Schraier, now I got to ask you this question. You are seeing these Knicks and seeing them do wonders. Mm-hmm. And they have completely taken the NBA by storm. And the crazy part is that for the New Jersey Nets fan that's right under you, I think the big thing here is that at one point when Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden, those guys were the talk of New York as a whole. Now it's the Knicks that have completely taken over, and Big Brother is back in business.
Well, Big Brother's always been back in business, Joey. You see James Harden advertise.
You should ask James Dolan that question. He was too busy putting his hands and putting his fingertips all over things. But go on.
But you ask James Harden, who is advertising to try and get fans into the building. Meanwhile, the Garden has 16,000 going strong for games 1 and 2 at the Garden. And meanwhile, Brooklyn can't even sell out with 3 of the best players in the game right now. So, look, no matter what teams might be struggling in this city or are succeeding at one point or another, the Yankees, the Knicks, the Giants, and the Rangers run this city. I'm sorry to say it, Joey. I know you're good. I know in your mind you're killing me for dousing on the Islanders, but it's the truth.
That's okay. Okay.
It doesn't matter.
I'm still a hard Yankees fan. That's okay.
No, well, that's true. That's true. So, but yeah, you were going to call me out and say, oh, wow, Ian, you're actually really interested in the Knicks these days. I grew up a diehard New York Knicks fan. I don't want to say that I dropped my fandom because the team was so bad for so long. I really dropped my fandom because I just didn't appreciate the way the game was being played anymore. I mean, it's funny how I spoke to Vinny about this, and then I also spoke to Joey and Rob, both of you, in a separate text. Be like, you guys are 10 years younger than me. And the thing is that, like, you guys didn't grow up with the Jordan, Reggie, Ewing, that era of basketball. True. That's what I grew up with. Like, to me, like, John Starks is a hero in this city, but I'll never forgive him for not being able to make a shot in Game 6 of the '94 finals. So it's so to see Knicks basketball thriving and to see Knicks fans having parties outside 34th Street and 8th Avenue outside the Garden after winning their first playoff game in 8 years, how can that not bring back memories, and how can you not get excited about that?
That is very true. And and again, exactly what you were talking about Big Brother, Rob DeLuca, you and your New Jersey Nets. Let's be honest here. They have officially taken a back seat. They're heading up to Boston to play them game number 1 of the playoffs on Sunday. Actually had an impact on the Islanders and the Bruins series, by the way, but we digress there. So with those two going about, what's your reaction to the Knicks? And then we'll go on right to the Nets after that.
Look, I'm very happy for the Knicks here. This is something they haven't had in years. Even through all the horrible Nets teams I have seen, my team has still been to the playoffs more recently than the Knicks. And yeah, as brief as their appearances were, they were still there. So I tasted the playoffs recently. So, but of course the Nets will always take a backseat to the Knicks. It doesn't even matter how bad the Knicks are; they're still the big brother here because the Nets are New Jersey. All their fans are still in New Jersey. I live in New Jersey. The Nets fans are here in New Jersey, and they don't want to commute to Brooklyn just to go see these games. Granted, it's cheaper than the Garden, which is why Knicks fans invade Barclays Center. But nonetheless, this is an exciting time to be a Knicks fan for those out there. And Vinny, you said you were at the game, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. A question for you then: the Obi top and alley oop. Tell me about the energy. Have you ever experienced anything like that?
See, I was thinking about it because throughout my childhood, I've been to some pretty amazing games. And yes, the Knicks haven't been in the playoffs all that frequently, but when Melo first came to the Knicks,
right,
first game that he put on a Knicks jersey, a kid from Brooklyn, and Obi's from Brooklyn too, but it's Melo.
It is
his first game. That crowd was unbelievable, and it was a regular, normal game versus the Milwaukee Bucks, February. No implication on the playoffs, nothing, and that crowd was just probably the best crowd I've ever been a part of. But on Wednesday night, there was something special. The energy, there was just something different in the air. And that Obi top and that alley-oop put it over the edge for sure, because you can tell that New Yorkers are backing him up.
Yeah, and not only that too, but talk about also and seeing the reaction too from his mother too. I thought that was the coolest thing, right? You got his mom's reaction, but when I saw that, right, and I saw that live, I said, I can't even imagine being in the Garden right now and seeing how, or just they're literally taking the roof down. Yeah.
I mean, to put it into a personal perspective, my mom texts me probably every game asking where I'm sitting, where we're stationed, just so that she can maybe get a glimpse of me on TV. So if my mom's like that for a person who's just statting the game, imagine what it feels like for a person who's impacting the game on the floor. You can't it's just an unbelievable experience for her, and for her to not, if she didn't have tears in her eyes, I'd be concerned, that. It's huge. That's a huge moment for the family.
We brought up earlier about the Brooklyn Nets, though. When I said game one, I meant to say game one at TD Garden. It will be game number 3 tonight, and game 4 will be Sunday. Just to clarify that. And Brooklyn right now has a 2-0 lead in that series to start things off. Let's look to the little brother Brooklyn Nets here. Vinny, you're a big NBA guy. What do you see in terms of the Brooklyn Nets? Yeah. Do they have the ability to go the distance?
I don't see why not. I mean, you have 3 top 5 players in the NBA. There should be no excuse, right? And they're finally buying in on the defensive end. I was talking to Ian. I don't watch many Nets games. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't have the S network. I don't even have MSG. I just watch MSG on my phone because I don't have cable in my apartment. But I did tune into the Nets playoff game, game 2, and you could just tell that they have that energy. They have that it factor that they can go all the way. And when you have Kevin Durant, honestly, anything's possible. Everyone talks a lot about James Harden and Kyrie, but Kevin Durant, I feel like he's the difference maker. If you just have Harden, if you just have Kyrie, you're not getting over the hump. If you have KD, that's the guy. So they have the guy.
Well, Now, Ian, the next thing here would be with the Brooklyn Nets. I was about to say New Jersey Nets because that's Rob DeLuca's, his heart. But the Brooklyn Nets, though, man, I mean, not only are they going to, well, as you brought up, they can't even sell out the Barclays Center. And they've been given clearance to have a full capacity crowd. But what do you see in terms of the Brooklyn Nets? And not only that, but also how seeing Brooklyn and seeing the Knicks, both of them do well together, how good it is, not only for New York sports, but even for the NBA as well.
I want to bring up something that I believe it was on Get Up or something. It was on one of the ESPN shows. They had brought Stephen A. on, and they had asked him what would be a bigger disappointment, the New York Knicks losing in the first round or the Brooklyn Nets not making it to the NBA Finals. Are you kidding me? That's an actual question. I mean, did the Knicks? What were the let's go back to the NBA Coach of the Year discussion for a second. Phoenix has Chris Paul, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton,
Yeah.
The Knicks before they had, D Rose. I mean, what was expected of Julius Randle? Did anybody expect coming into the year for him to be applauded with MVP chance? So that's a question. I think anything short of an NBA Finals appearance for Brooklyn at this point is a failure. I mean, they've decided to mortgage their future on Harden, Durant, and Kyrie bringing them a championship, and I think that's where this stands at this point. We're expecting Brooklyn to win their series against Boston. The Bucks are up 2-0 in their series, so I think it'll make for an interesting next round if they're going up against Giannis. But anything short of an NBA Finals appearance, because that team is working in a small window now after trading away all their kids and all their prospects and all their draft picks. So anything short of a Finals appearance for the Nets is a disappointment.
It's really, again, and I just look at the roster for the Knicks, and not even that, but I also look at the roster for the Brooklyn Nets as well. And Rob DeLuca, how putrid is it to see the Brooklyn Nets roster the way that it is? It's just, I don't even know what to say here.
There's no depth. It's gone. There's no future. It's gone. And it's not. And Ian, as you said, an NBA Finals appearance is the minimum.
Yeah.
This team should really win this thing, especially if the Suns are able to hold off the Lakers, especially if the Suns hold off LeBron. It is clear as day they have to be the NBA champions if the Lakers go home early. So the problem here is that, and it's not just one championship, it's got to be multiple championships at this point. One isn't enough. They have to be in the finals this season and next season,
and probably the year after that, and
win at least once of the next 2 years. Yeah, and of the next 3 years, they essentially probably got to win twice. Like, there needs to be champion. This needs to be a dynasty because we don't have a future here in Brooklyn right now, and this is the second time that this has happened. The Nets I was like, finally, the Nets have recovered from the Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce trade. And we still got Kyrie and KD out of it, and it's finally recovered. And then we go and do it again by getting James Harden. Now, look, I love James Harden. I think he's a great player. He's been a great addition. He's the reason he's the reason the Nets are going to do well this playoff season. But it has to get done. Right now, we're comfortably getting through Boston, but playing in Boston is another animal. So they got to come away with at least one game in games 3 and 4. They got to come away with one, and then I'll be very confident that they move on to the next round, hopefully against the Heat. But after what I saw in Game 2, I do not see the Miami Heat remotely getting past the Bucks. It looked close in Game 1, but they had to take Game 1 if they wanted a shot here, and then they got ruined in Game 2. So that series is dead. We're looking at Nets Bucks next round, very likely.
Well, and that is a phenomenal series upcoming if that does stand. Vinny, I got to ask you this question. Unbiased response, please.
Okay.
Let's see. Do you envision, and even though right now the Knicks game has started, so we're not going to keep you on much longer, but what do you see here in terms of...
it's on you.
There we go.
Come on now.
What do you see here in terms of the result of the series?
I think the Knicks will win in 7. I think.
Wow.
I don't see a way this series doesn't go 7 games. It's just so tight.
It is tight.
And Atlanta has more talent than the Knicks. The Knicks just play grittier. They play better defense. They're better coached in my mind. And that's the X factor in the playoffs. When you have a better coach, when you have a better defensive system, you can win games. And Atlanta could score in bunches, but when the Knicks lock down on defense, it's a different ball game. So if we could just keep Trae Young at bay, which is extremely tough, and I know that, but if we can keep him at bay for a little bit, we can win this thing in 7 games.
Ian, your response to the Knicks potentially winning in 7 games?
I agree with him. I think that the having the home court advantage, even though Atlanta took one of the games at the Garden, took Game 1 at the Garden, I still just like the way I would have felt differently had the Knicks lost on Wednesday, with the way that first half was played, and they were down, I think, by 15 at one point because they just could not get Julius Randle going, and they were just the Hawks were continually collapsing on him and forcing other players to beat him. And in Game 1, we saw RJ Barrett shooting well from beyond the arc. Game 2, Reggie Bullock, but The fact that they were resilient, even when that Garden crowd was as quiet as they were for that first half, to come back and just pull off that run to win game 2. I just think they've got the momentum right now. It's going to be a tough series. It's going to be a gritty series, but I agree with Vinny. I could see Knicks in 7.
Well, now I got to ask you this question, Rob DeLuca. In terms of your Brooklyn Nets, do they hold on to a 2-0 lead against the Boston Celtics?
I really hope so. This will, if they choke this series away, I'm not sure what I will do, but it won't be good. It won't be pretty because you did your job. You took the 2 games at home. You did it pretty comfortably too. So, like I said, they got to at least take 1 game in Boston here, though, in games 3 or 4. They just have to, because I don't see a sweep. I see probably 5 games. They got to take it back home in Brooklyn, because Boston's not going to go 0-2 at home. They play way too well at home, and they're going to have almost a full house. From what I heard, Kyrie did a little trash talking, so naturally Boston's going to respond. I would say they're going to at least cover the 8 points tonight. It's going to be a very tight game. So, but no, overall, I think the Nets do win this series in 5. It's going to be comfortable. They're going to move on. They're going to face the Bucks, and I'm terrified to face the Bucks. They were the one team I really didn't want to face before the conference finals, or at all, really. But because now there's a chance the Nets get upset in round 2, and that turns into a failed season.
Vinny, again, I ask unbiased, but your thoughts on if Brooklyn can get past Boston, even with a 2-0 lead?
Yeah, they have to. There's no excuses there. I see Rob's point where it could go 5 games, and that's strictly because of Brad Stevens.
Yep.
He's just such a great coach. I don't think he can mentally take a sweep. Like that's an even bigger failure for Boston than it would be for Brooklyn to lose, not lose, but win in like 6 games.
Right.
They're not losing to Boston. Everyone knows that. Boston just doesn't. They don't have enough firepower with Jaylen Brown going down. Marcus Smart's tough. Tatum is unbelievable, but they can't beat the Nets. It's not possible. I could see you going 5, just because Boston, the TD Garden's a tough place to win. And even if Boston's not super competitive, it's still a tough place to win. Boston fans they're rabid. And like you said, Kyrie was talking a little trash. He said that, there's some stuff going on in Boston that might not be too kosher, but
right.
It'll probably go 5, but Brooklyn's, they got to win that series. There's no ifs, ands, or buts.
One last question for all 3 of you now. In terms of Brooklyn, or actually in terms of Boston, this is a complete shift. If Boston gets swept, does Danny Ainge make numerous moves in the offseason?
Roster-wise, I think yes. Coaching, no.
Roster-wise, Ian or Rob?
Yeah, Brad Stevens is a Coach of the Year candidate every year. He's not going anywhere. He's one of the best coaches in the NBA, and he's like 40. It's just unreal how he does it. It's incredible. Yeah. From his near back championships at Butler to now what he's done with what he's turned the Celtics into. He's not going anywhere. There might be a few player moves in there, but I don't know if you could base it off getting swept by a super team to have to blow up your roster, especially with one of your best players out for the season.
Yeah.
Ian Schraier, final thought on rapid fire.
I think Rob made a good point in regards to if the Celtics do get swept, look who you're getting swept by. Would I be surprised to see Brad Stevens go? Not necessarily, but I think we could see some roster movement for sure.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, cannot thank Vinny Amadeo enough. Works at Adelphi University with Ian Schraier as the coordinator of athletic marketing and special events at Adelphi University out here on Long Island, and also does a lot of statistic work with the New York Knicks, his favorite team. Vinny, thank you so much for coming on, and enjoy the Knicks game tonight, sir.
Thank you, guys. Have a good weekend. Enjoy.
Absolutely, man. You as well. We will see you soon. Yes, absolutely. So, well, as we hang out here and we wait for Christian Arnold, one of the New York Islanders experts, and he is the editor-in-chief of NYI Hockey Now, co-host of Hockey Night in New York, and he is the contributor on the sports section of the Associated Press. Let's continue rambling on here, fellas, and we've got a whole bunch of things to talk about here in terms of hockey, because game 7 tonight of Vegas and Minnesota comes your way around 9:00, which should be a good one to get tonight really wrapped up. Ian Schraier, we have seen a Minnesota bounce back multiple times, and Vegas is hanging on by a thread here. Let's see your thoughts with this.
I'd love to throw it back if we had the video. I know we don't, but I'd love to throw it back to the video of when we had Casey Bryan on and we were previewing each of the reconstructed divisions for this year's hockey season, and how he said Minnesota, no. Like, did we any of us expect Kirill Kaprizov to have the year that this kid is having right now for the Wild? I mean, they're just a gritty team, and I think Vegas is going to win in 7 because they're playing on home ice. Minnesota did take game 1 there, but I just like the Knights playing at home with their home fans. Other than that, Minnesota has defended their home ice well. I'm just not sure with the experience that's on the ice between those two teams. I mean, look, if Minnesota does it, it would be in overtime, but I'm expecting Vegas to pull that out.
Yeah, I mean, look, this game's going to be tight because the series has been tight. I don't think anyone expected it. I sure didn't. I thought Vegas was going to win this in like 5. But nonetheless, we're here at game 7. Minnesota is hanging on. And honestly, there's a real difference maker as to the reason why Minnesota has hung on so well. I mean, look, they took game 1 at home, or in Vegas, the Wild did. A 1-0 game. Cam Talbot has been phenomenal this series. He is half the reason they're in there. But there's a forward that they finally put in the lineup after 3 games as a healthy scratch. And I think he's made all the difference in the world to keeping Minnesota alive. And that's Zach Parise. The playmaking this guy is doing right now after being benched for the first 3 games, it's unbelievable. He is setting up everyone left and right, and it's beautiful plays. He doesn't always reflect on the score sheet, but scoring plays have mostly started with him since getting back in the lineup, and it's why Minnesota is here. Kirill Kaprizov is going to win the Calder Trophy. I'm just going to give that bold statement right now. It's really not that bold. That's what's going to happen. The kid had 30 goals. It's happening.
How crazy is that? And I want to bring your point up about Zach Parise, because let's not forget, he got paid the same exact amount as Ryan Suter a whole bunch of years ago following his long tenure with the New Jersey Devils. Okay. Right. And the crazy part is that I think he's still got another 5 or 6 years left on his contract.
Yeah. That's how.
Okay. And at that astronomical amount of, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it is in the near range of $7.5 million, which at the time was one of the largest contracts in all of the NHL. So now, with that being said here, again, there were rumors about him getting traded, potentially with a reunion with Lou Lamoriello and the New York Islanders. 7.538.461. He's still got another 5, or rather, after this year, he's got another 4 years on his contract, and full no movement at the age of 36. Really crazy stuff, fellas. But I mean, I don't even know where to go with that, because Minnesota has been so resilient, getting these young guys up here and taking on these little contracts as well, or these contracts like a Nick Bonino that no one wanted and needed to get money off the books. They also had Matt Zuccarello on board as well. They still do, obviously, and they are really playing up to par right now with Vegas Golden Knights, who have maxed out in terms of their salary. So really good stuff there with that. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get Christian Arnold up and running here as we get our nameplates together. Ladies and gentlemen, Christian Arnold. Christian, very nice to meet you, and thank you so much for coming on here tonight for a little bit.
Of course, happy to do it. Nice to see you guys.
Yeah, you as well. Thanks so much. So, Christian, I'm assuming you were in the building, Game 6, and I can't even imagine what you felt by seeing a Coliseum series victory, or a series victory at the Coliseum for the first time since 1993. We all know what happened following that game. But I mean, we see the resiliency and really the bounce back from the Islanders just heading down, and then they're able to come back up and just continue the Pittsburgh Penguins' woes in the first round of the playoffs. And again, they did so well. Barry Trotz now 2-0 as a New York Islanders head coach against Mike Sullivan. Christian, what were your thoughts when you were there Game 6?
Yeah, no, I mean, it was a wonderful atmosphere. It was the first kind of real sense of normalcy. And I know, I'm sure Ian can kind of speak to this. He's been in that building when things have been bad and think he's been in that building when things have been good. So he kind of knows the difference between the Nassau Coliseum and that atmosphere. So it really was a great thing to see because I think, if anything, it was the first real sign of normalcy we've had around here in a really long time. I mean, on kind of a bigger scope, this certainly means a lot more than just a hockey game. And that was great. But as far as the game goes, I mean, it wasn't as surprising. I think the Islanders, if you look at the way they're constructed, they are a resilient bunch, a group of guys that really do believe in what they're trying to do there on the island and what Barry Trotz and what Lou Lamoriello have been preaching this entire time. So there really hasn't been this sense of doubt within that locker room. There hasn't really been this sense of kind of getting down on themselves when things aren't going that way. One thing Barry Trotz has talked a lot about this season, and even years past, has been about being comfortable playing in uncomfortable situations. And the Islanders really have kind of mastered that, especially in this series when you look at it. And I think a great example of that was Game 5, actually. You look at the way that the Islanders were absolutely dominated for most of that game, and they still managed to win. To me, that was really the camel that broke the straw, the straw that broke the camel's back, because that really – I think if there was any sense of hope from the Pittsburgh Penguins, that really broke a lot. I think their spirits, whether they'll admit it or not, because that was the game they clearly should have won, and they didn't. And I think you look at what the Islanders have been able to do against Pittsburgh. They were able to take advantage of a Tristan Jarry that just wasn't really there. That series, the goaltending really became the difference maker. And you look at the way Barry Trotz was able to adjust during the series, and you look at the way that Mike Sullivan wasn't. And in fairness, Maxime Legacy not having Casey DeSmith back there to turn to when Jarry is not playing well, really, I think became such a big factor in this series that I don't think too many people kind of anticipated. But then you look at what the Islanders were able to do with Ilya Sorokin and Semyon Varlamov. Varlamov played phenomenally and was one of the big reasons why the Islanders got here to the postseason. Kind of lost it in that, that second and third game a little bit. He played well, but those first 3 minutes for both of those games were very shaky, and you really looked at those two games, and those were the minutes that cost the Islanders at the end of the day. Ilya Sorokin comes in Game 1, phenomenal. Game 4, phenomenal. Game 5, the rest of the way, and he really backstops the Islanders to this series win. And then speaking about Game 6, again, going back to that mentality of the team playing being comfortable in uncomfortable circumstances, that was a perfect example of that as well. The Islanders are down in that game in the second period. Pittsburgh able to take the fans out of the game a little bit, but the Islanders never really got down on themselves, and they really stuck to their style of play. And you saw it pay off there in the second period when they had that offensive outburst.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And also, just a couple of shows ago, we were talking about, Ian and Rob, we were talking about it, where I had said right away, and Ian didn't really agree with me, but we were talking about how where the home ice advantage, where fans were going to be allowed back in their respective buildings, were going to make a big difference. And you saw it. I saw right away in Nashville. That was number one. And then we got to see it also at the Coliseum, where really Tristan Jarry was rattled, and he was rattled beyond belief in Game 6. And I mean, there was no returning there. Ian Schraier, I want to pass it off to you here.
I mean, I think to go back to that conversation, what I had said was, and I think the team we had referenced as the team that could potentially pull off an upset just based off home ice advantage was Nashville, but we knew Carolina was the better team. Christian, always great to see you. I have to ask this question because this has happened now 2 years in a row, and this is the part about the Islanders that just really gets me, and it's great to talk to you about it. Is 2 years in a row the Islanders have gone into the playoffs as just such an offensive, inept franchise. They don't seem to score. Like when they'll play the Rangers, they'll drop 6 in the bucket. They'll play Buffalo and they'll lose 1-0. So what is it in your opinion about the Islanders in the playoffs that goes from being such an inept franchise offensively this last 2 years to when they get to the playoffs, they all of a sudden become a goal scoring machine?
You know what I think it is? This team is genuinely, and Ian, is always good to see you, my friend. It's been too long.
Yes.
But I think you look at the way the Islanders are constructed, and this is a team that's built for the playoffs. You know, you're not going to win games in the playoffs. Most nights, you're not going to win games in the playoffs. You know, a blowout style game like you saw in Game 4 where it's 4-1 or 5-0 or, 3-0 or anything like that. You're going to win those tight, hard-fought games, those 3-2, 2-1, even 5-3. That game was just as close as it could have been, a one-goal game instead of a two-goal game. And to that point, too, you still saw some of the ineptitude there with the Islanders. There's something really special about not being able to put home an empty net shot 3 or 4 times in the final moment or so when they were trying to get Brock Nelson that hat trick in Game 6. Yeah. So that was, I mean, you couldn't help but kind of laugh at that because it was almost comical in a way. But I think it really just comes down to the fact that the Islanders are a team that is built to play in the playoffs, and their style is kind of that hard-nosed, hard-fought game, and maybe it doesn't translate well or that great during the regular season, but when the playoffs come around, these guys they flip that switch and they bring it to a different gear. I think it goes back to that mentality and that kind of the what's preached to these guys at the beginning of the season is kind of taken to heart. And really kind of almost banked until the postseason starts. And then you really see the Islanders in their true form and what they can really do. It is maddening. And you talk to Islander fans around here and, you go to the games when people are there. And the number of times you're hearing people scream, shoot, is really, it's kind of that hockey fan trope that happens everywhere. But I feel like it's especially prevalent when it comes to the Islanders because they are such a team that hesitates to shoot the puck or create those offensive opportunities. And then the playoff comes around and then you see them, they may not shoot the puck every time. They may not, create as many offensive opportunities, but when it comes down to it, they capitalize on those chances. Again, you look at the last 2 games of the series in Game 5 and Game 6, they don't have a ton of shots, but when they had them, they made them count.
They're just a team that has that impeccable ability of, at least in the regular season, of passing up the good shot for the amazing shot and the amazing shot that doesn't exist. But I do want to thank you, Christian, for bringing up my New York Sports Day days and when we got to experience the days of DP and Billy Guerin together. That was a lot of fun.
Those are days. You'll always treasure those.
Oh,
days.
Absolutely.
I
mean, sitting on press row and eating my cheesecake with Butchie in the third, in the second intermission, asking him, hearing him complain about what the team is doing and how they're not doing it right. But nice little trips down memory lane, pre-renovation. But I want to transition here, Christian, to the upcoming series against the Bruins, because when I look at the series upcoming, the one thing that just stands out immediately is the difference in goaltending. When you look at Tristan Jarry, the lack of playoff experience, now going up against the fact Tuukka Rask is here this year for the playoffs. What type of weight, just individually alone, does Tuukka hold for this series for the Islanders?
Oh, I mean, this is going to be night and day because Tristan Jarry, a little, obviously not as experienced, and the Islanders were able to get to them. Tuukka Rask, I mean, he's a veteran goaltender that's kind of been through just about everything you could imagine when it comes to a goaltender in the playoffs and in the NHL as a whole. So this is a guy that's a veteran guy. He's not shaken easily, and for the Islanders, a little bit here, they really haven't gotten the chance to face him a ton during the regular season either, which I think is kind of the interesting. You look at the games back when the Islanders really played and defeated and dominated the Boston Bruins, especially in the third period early in the year. It was mostly Yaroslav Halak in net, if I'm not mistaken. So now you have Tuukka Rask in net, and I believe he was in net the last 2 times the Islanders played them. And you could tell the difference. You could tell the difference in goaltending. You can tell the difference in the opportunities and the pucks that were going in. And it really kind of changed the course of those games because it went from games where the Islanders were really, playing with them and getting the better of the Boston Bruins, especially in those final 20 minutes. But to matchups that were much closer for a full 60, and then obviously saw the Bruins kind of become the Boston Bruins that I think a lot of people expected, especially in those 2 games that they played back to back in April, where Boston really looked like the Bruins that everyone expected to show up. That hard-fought team. They're going to punish you. They're not going to give you too many opportunities, and they're really just going to suffocate any sort of breakouts from your own zone into the offensive zone. So I think it's going to come down to, again, a huge battle between the two goaltenders. And Tuukka Rask certainly gives the Boston Bruins right now a much better circumstance than the Penguins had with Tristan Jarry.
I just want to follow up here with one more then. Is there an X factor in your opinion, maybe for both teams, but specifically Boston, because Boston is just they're just such a gritty team, and I feel like they get away with so much because of Tuukka. But aside from that top Bergeron Marchand line, like, is there an X factor? I mean, maybe it's Taylor Hall for you. Is there an X factor that makes that difference? Maybe that puts Boston over the Islanders or the Islanders over Boston coming into the series.
I think it's going to be. I think this is a really interesting one because. As much as now, when you look back on the NHL trade deadline this past year, and Islander fans were clamoring for a guy like Taylor Hall to come to Long Island and be that big offensive scorer that they wanted. It didn't seem like that. Hindsight being 2020, it doesn't look like that was really in the cards for the way Taylor Hall was kind of playing that. But I think one of the kind of interesting storylines is now you have the two big trade deadline acquisitions going head to head in Kyle Palmieri with the Islanders and Taylor Hall with the Boston Bruins. And I think those two guys are really going to be the X factors when you take away, that top line. And when you're not talking about Tuukka Rask for the Bruins, because Palmieri obviously played a very big role in the Islanders Game 1 victory. He played a big role in the couple wins that they had at the end of the series as well against Pittsburgh. And obviously Taylor Hall has played a gigantic offensive role with the Boston Bruins since he arrived in Boston, because he's really turned it on. And I mean, in fairness, I will say, I looked at that trade and I said, maybe Boston is not the right fit for Taylor Hall, and he's proven me wrong at every stretch of the season so far since he's been there. So I think that when it comes down to the X factors for both these sides, I think one big thing for the Bruins is going to be the play of Taylor Hall, and interestingly enough, it's going to be the play of Kyle Palmieri for the New York Islanders, because he's a guy and Travis Zajac too when you think about it, because Oliver Wahlstrom likely not going to play in Game 1 for the Islanders as well.
It's really unbelievable to see how Taylor Hall has, really found his footing with Boston. And, obviously, Christian, right next to you is Rob DeLuca, who is a diehard New Jersey Devils fan, who is pretty much crying at every single step of the way here this season, because he had to say goodbye to Kyle Palmieri. He had to say goodbye. Well, that 2 years ago, I had to say goodbye to Taylor Hall. And then he had to say goodbye to Travis Zajac as well. So, Rob DeLuca, I'm going to pass this one off to you now.
Yeah, look, I'm very excited. This is gonna be an exciting series. I mean, this has a capability to go 7. The Islanders are going to be able to hang with the Bruins. It does come down to the play of Tuukka Rask. It comes down to the play of Ilya Sorokin, who has won the starting position for the New York Islanders. Uh-huh. So I'm assuming he's going tomorrow night. I can't imagine why you'd go back. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But right. I'm actually not too surprised by the play of Taylor Hall, because honestly, when he sees that his team is doing well, he turns it on. When he was having that MVP season in New Jersey, it was because the Devils were in first place in December. So he even though the team was slowly collapsing, he turned it on, had a 26-game point streak, and it was one of the best things the Devils have had in the modern era here. So and then when we eventually traded him to Arizona, he gets knocked out by Nashville in the bubble, leaves it.
Please keep telling us what grinds your gears, Rob.
We don't have that. Yeah, there we go. What really grinds Rob DeLuca's gears? That's where
he knows that if Taylor Hall, Kyle Palmieri, and Travis Zajac were still in Jersey, the Devils are going to the Stanley Cup final this year.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, hey, Christian doesn't have that kind of time if we want to grind all my gears. Christian doesn't. You gotta utilize him while he's here. So, look, Christian. Yeah, thanks for being on. I think obviously this is a very exciting time to be a New York Islanders fan. I think this series with Boston is going to be great. Home fans are now that both buildings are essentially going to be full. It's going to be. I think that's going to play a huge advantage to both sides. Having TD Garden, having Nassau Coliseum. Basically 100% capacity, and absolutely doing things that you can't imagine. Because what I heard, those roars I heard in Game 6, just on TV, were second to none. And I think we're going to see a lot of that in round 2. And I think that when it
We're gonna
comes,
see more of
look,
that.
I've got like
And better.
we might as well call the Islanders the New Jersey Islanders at this point because you got Kyle Palmieri who is going and the thing about Travis Zajac coming in for Wallstrom, he made an immediate impact in Game 6. He had 3 assists? It was unbelievable.
I think what you kind of isn't going to make it on the score sheet, but he had what I could only describe as a game-saving stop on a chance from I forget who the shooter is, but Sorokin gets beat and he's right there to knock the puck right off the goal line. So that was a huge save in the moment as well.
He was always a defensive-minded center. It's a very beneficial player to have. I was shocked the Islanders didn't find a way to squeeze him in to start the series. Personally, I would have had him in over Leo Komarov. Leo Komarov should not be playing with Matt Barzal, but I'll digress from that. But nonetheless, I think my question for you here, Christian, is do you see it possible for the Islanders to do it again and make another upset to return to the I don't know what the hell, semifinals, I guess we'll call it, since this isn't a real conference final. We'll call it a semifinal.
I think it's a great question. By the way, just to go back to the Leo Komarov comment, the Islanders did play Travis Zajac on that top line, and it did not go well. I think
we saw that a few weeks ago.
I would have shuffled the lineup, but I would have personally sat Komarov, played Zajac, and jumbled the lineup a little bit.
He's showing his bias here, Christian. He's showing his bias.
Understood.
I mean, look how good he played. Look how good he played in Game 6. What can you say? And hey, we can't forget my man Andy Green, and of course, always ready to go, Corey Schneider. The man's always ready to go.
He was certainly ready to go for Game 1. To answer your actual question here, because there's so many facets to it. I believe they can, because I think at this point, as much as people looked at the series against Pittsburgh and went, "Oh my goodness, the Penguins are so good," and the Islanders are, not so good, and on paper, the Penguins are a much more star-studded team. The Islanders are a team, like I was saying before, they're constructed for the playoffs, and when they're playing their style of hockey, you've seen them beat just about every team that they would have had to beat in the playoffs, especially in the East, beating Washington, beating obviously Pittsburgh, beating Boston obviously early in the year, heavy-handedly too, I might add, early in the season. So I think we're kind of past those days where the Islanders are kind of, listen, I think among Islander fans, I should say anyway, that people are past the days of the Islanders being the actual underdog. I understandably, I understand how the rest of the league still views them as the underdog and kind of the team that doesn't get the credit it deserves, but Islander fans, I think, have an expectation now of this team is in its window. If they're going to win a Stanley Cup, it's going to be in the next 2 years or so, right? And I think we're kind of in the middle of that window of when this group, especially with the core it has, can and should win a cup the way it's constructed. So Islander fans expect a Stanley Cup at some point with the way things have gone because they've played so well. I think they can compete with the Bruins. I think that when you look at those games during the regular season, they were all, for the most part, still pretty close. And it came down to some mistakes being made, and Boston obviously capitalizing on those mistakes, and the Islanders not so much. And I think that's kind of going to be the storyline going into the series as well, especially in Game 1. You're going to have a lot of different aspects here. A full building at TD Garden, which is the first time the Islanders are really playing in front of that. A full building in Nassau Coliseum, essentially, which is something the Islanders, again, playing for the first time all year in front of almost a capacity crowd. And again, going back to Ian and I's days and some bad teams, 9,000 people at an Islander game or 12,000 people, that was a big win for the Islanders back in the day. So it's funny how things have certainly changed for the organization in the future of this franchise. But I think it's very plausible that they could beat the Bruins. And I wouldn't call it an upset because I don't look at the series going into it as that heavily favored one way or the other. And to be honest, I think looking at the first round going into it, I personally would have rather seen the Islanders play Boston in the first round instead of Pittsburgh right out of the gate, because I think they matched up a lot better against the Boston Bruins. And I think that the Islanders and Bruins do play a very similar style of game. And I think the Islanders, for the most part, during the regular season, I should say, played that style a little bit better than Boston, and they had a little bit of an edge there over the Bruins.
And looking at the season series against between the Islanders and the Bruins, the Islanders won the first 5 meetings while the Bruins won the last 3 meetings. And that was by a combined 10-3 goals scored in favor of the Bruins, obviously. And those final 3, Taylor Hall was on that squad. Christian, I want to ask you this one final question for you from me anyway. Tuukka Rask is in a contract year, and we've seen Tuukka Rask obviously last year. He left the bubble, and it was Yaroslav Halak's bubble, Yaroslav Halak's net. And really, what he did was a lousy performance in the bubble, rightfully so. Where no one's minds were really on hockey at the time, but he did what he could. Now Tuukka is back in form. I believe he's number 5 or number 6 out of all the goaltenders that have been playing here in the playoffs in terms of goals against average, like a 195 or 185 or along those lines. And because he's in a contract year, we have seen and we have heard countless rumors in the past about him potentially retiring. Boston maybe trading him. He can't get the job done. Do we see a possibility where that could eventually come up in a press conference, or that could maybe mess with his head?
That's a great question. I think that's a better question for the guys who cover the Boston Bruins, because the Boston media, and it's every media corps is kind of different in the way it operates and the way it kind of goes about its business covering the teams that it does. Pittsburgh, for instance, certainly has their way of doing things, and so does Boston. And I think we kind of know the difference between the New York and Boston media, or the similarities. They are kind of an aggressive group as well. Yeah. I think that the question will come up if the Bruins find themselves down maybe in the series after 2 games going back to Long Island, or you have a clinching opportunity 6 or 7 games in for the Islanders. I think that question will come up, especially let's say Boston loses the series. That's when I think the heat really gets turned on, because then, everyone kind of becomes the Monday morning quarterback. And I understand that that's part of the job when you cover a pro sports team. But at the same time, that's when things really become, well, now you have the hindsight of 2020, and you can say, well, he should have done this, or clearly he wasn't, honed in on that and whatever. But I also think he kind of has something to prove this season as well, at least maybe in his own mind as well, just because of what happened in the bubble last year, because he caught so much grief from, I think, a lot of people who didn't necessarily understand what was going on in his personal life and kind of the circumstances that the players found themselves in during the bubble. But
right,
I think there's certainly a sense of renewed drive because of that from Tuukka Rask. And you saw that in the way that he played against the Washington Capitals. I think you saw that the way he played for the most part during the regular season. And certainly the Islanders are going to have to contend with that when the puck drops in game 1, because he's going to be a guy that, wants to go out and show why, he has the stature that he does in Boston and is the number 1 goaltender there.
Ian Schraier.
One last question, Christian. I mean, I think it's the question that always ends these conversations. What is your prediction for this series? Who comes away?
It's going to be a tough one. I will say the Islanders win in 7 games. I think that at the end of the day, I think this Islanders team is a little bit better than the Boston Bruins. I think that when it comes down to goaltending, Ilya Sorokin has given everyone nothing but confidence that he can withstand, whether it's the best player in the game in Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin during the playoffs to the way he's played during the regular season. I think he's shown everyone that he's a number 1 quality goaltender for the New York Islanders, and that this is his net right now to lose. And that they do have the goaltending depth to kind of withstand an issue. Let's say if Sorokin kind of loses an edge a little bit, they still have Varlamov to go back to. And, you remember last year in the postseason with, Thomas Greiss and Varlamov, that they switched back and forth in net. And, both of those guys kind of backed up each other, and they had big performances during the postseason. And then I think the Islanders offensively too, they've shown that they can compete with these teams as well. And I think that what bodes somewhat well for the Islanders is, in addition to all of that, is that Matthew Barzal, who was very quiet during the first round of the playoffs, historically plays very well against the Boston Bruins. And whether it's the fact that he remembers that, or he's constantly reminded that the Boston Bruins decided to not draft him 3 straight times in his draft year, whether that has any impact on that. But he historically, during the course of his career, has had some of his better numbers and better games against the Boston Bruins. And I think this is the series you saw him start to get a little more confident a little bit and get back to where he should be in the postseason at the end of that first round series. I think that continues in the second round, and that you see a much more confident and much more determined Matthew Barzal on the ice. And that's a huge factor as well.
It would make all the difference, in my opinion, at least. And I think Joey and Rob can attest to this as well, that I think it would make all the difference in the world if Barzal was able to, refine form, so to speak, I guess. If Barzal is on, I think that team is almost unstoppable offensively, at least.
Yeah. Oh yeah, without a doubt. He's really an offensive talent that you just don't, it's hard to replicate.
Yeah. And on top of it, you also brought up, just to conclude, obviously, Christian, you had brought up about how if Sorokin goes down, you've got Varlamov. We remember last year when Thomas Greiss started Game 7 against Philadelphia in the playoffs. We remember that, and I remember Ian, myself, and Rob
I still don't agree with it.
We all had that conversation where both myself and DeLuca agreed with the start, and Ian Schraier was very against it.
You had to do
I
it.
was against it because you ride or die with the goalie that got you there, and they didn't. But you know what? It paid off, right?
You got to know. That's why Barry Trotz is the coach that he is. He knows what to do.
AV had his one great year last year, and what does he do in years 2 and on? They flop, and that's what happened to the Flyers this year. So.
And obviously, I should mention that if Sorokin goes down or someone, that's always the great Corey Schneider to come in and.
That's right. He's always ready to go. He was ready to go in 2018. Won in his first start. He's always ready.
Don't start him, Christian. Don't start him.
If the Islanders win a cup, if the Islanders win a cup this year, they're gonna have to parade some of it through Newark, New Jersey, just as a tribute to what the New Jersey Devils have done.
Literally, we're giving Kyle Palmieri, Travis Zajac, Andy Green would all be getting their names on it. They've been
Lou Lamoriello too.
I'm surprised they haven't lured Brodeur out of retirement yet at this point.
Give it a sec. Let's see who else Lou can get in the offseason.
That's all right. That's all right. He'll go after Nico Hischier next. Christian Arnold, ladies and gentlemen, editor-in-chief of NYI Hockey Now and co-host of Hockey Night NY. You can also see him on a couple of commercials on MSG Plus as well. Some really cool stuff. Christian Arnold, ladies and gentlemen. Christian, thank you so much for coming on, and we hope to have you back again, man. We really appreciated the time and the company as well.
Absolutely. Anytime you guys need, I'm happy to jump on with you guys. Ian, always good to see you, my friend. It's been too long, and hopefully I'll see you in person soon.
Hopefully, Christian. Let's definitely get together.
Definitely.
All right, Christian. Thanks so much for coming on. And ladies and gentlemen, let's keep on moving forward here with just sports in general. It's wild because the crazy thing here is that, the New Jersey Islanders, Rob DeLuca.
That's what I said. That's what I say. I say it.
Or the New York Devils, or
it could be the
Devils East, whatever you want to call
like
them.
the whole Tampa Bay Lightning, New York Rangers joke. It's literally the same thing.
New York South.
It is.
New York South. And those days were wild. Dan Girardi,
McDonough,
Anton Strawman.
Pun fully intended on wild there.
Well, I think about Brad Richards back in 2004, but yeah, Anton Strawman as well. Yeah, that is some wild stuff there.
Well, then you've got, if you're talking the other way, you also got Marty St. Louis coming up as well.
That's
Ranger
true.
Legend.
That's right.
Look, the Rangers don't get to the Cup final that year without him. So
that's right. That's right. We know all about 2014 Game 6 Eastern Conference Finals against Montreal. We know all about that. Ladies and gentlemen, let's keep on moving forward here. Let's go to the NFL now. And there is some talk, not even some talk. There was actually a phone call that was leaked between Shannon Sharpe, not even leaked. He
called him on air.
There's no leak.
Shannon Sharpe called Julio Jones on air. And you know what? We'll leave it at this. In their on their show Undisputed on FS1. Shannon Sharpe literally calls Atlanta Falcons wide receiver Julio Jones, or is he Atlanta Falcons wide receiver Julio Jones? Let's get you the full conversation right now.
We call? Okay, we're calling.
You watching, Julio?
Really hope he answers here.
Julio, have the guts to pick up the phone.
What's happening?
Yeah.
All right.
Julio. Hold on. Let me put you on. Can you hear me?
I got you. This is your favorite uncle. What's going on, bro?
Man, nothing much. About to go meet up with my brother. What's happening with you?
Man, look. You want to go to the Cowboys, Julio? Or you want to stay in Atlanta?
Oh, man, nah, I'm out of there, man.
You
He's
out of
out. He's out of there.
there? Are you going to... Ideally, where would you like to go?
Right now, I want to win.
Okay. Well, don't go to Dallas. If you go to, you ain't winning in Dallas, Julio.
Man, listen, come on, man. You already know I know.
Okay.
Can you remind him we're on television
Ask
right
him
now?
why we wore the Dallas.
Listen. You know how people is, man, with all that going on with the picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all that stuff like that.
Okay.
Man, I ain't never been on that. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. That's good enough. Julio, I'll talk to you later. Thanks for calling me back. We on air, but I appreciate you calling me, dog. You know I know my nephew was going to pick up.
Oh yeah, nah. Yeah, I ain't going to Dallas, man. I never thought about going to Dallas.
Okay. I appreciate that, bro. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Now he might not have any choice.
I told you about that.
Well,
That is so funny. It's almost not funny how funny it is.
I'm going to tell you something, fellas. As the other side of this, right? The organization, right? And I'm not talking about the Atlanta Falcons. I'm talking about the NFL as a whole. I would be beyond livid with Shannon Sharp. These are things you don't do. And when I say you don't do that, I look at it in that regard where, there are certain things that are kept nice and quiet.
You can do that, Joey, but the thing is, you're
can't, though,
you're
and I'll
supposed
tell
to
you
tell
why,
him you're
Joey.
on air. The fact that he didn't tell him on air is where the problem
But
is.
that's the thing, though. Okay, I have a problem with this, okay? The problem that I have here is that Shannon Sharp is really at fault here, okay?
Yeah.
You picked up the phone. You picked up the phone and called him. You didn't have to do that on air. You basically railroaded him or your boy, whatever he called him, his nephew. You railroaded him, literally railroaded him. And now, who is the one that is going to have to deal with the outfall here and the outcry from the media, from the fans, all of the above? You're going to see a completely different media when they interview Julio Jones, when they want to talk to Julio Jones. And you know who I really feel bad for? The Atlanta Falcons media relations team. That's who I feel bad for. Ian Schraier knows exactly what I'm talking about because him and I both work in media relations.
That's
and
fair.
if a player of ours did that, good Lord, have mercy on our souls. What else would we say?
Well, you guys
work our gears.
You guys work in college
gears?
athletics. You guys work in college athletics. There'd be so much legal trouble if one of your players did that.
Fair. It doesn't matter. But the fact of the matter is, fellas, is that it makes no sense to me, okay, that he would do that in Shannon Sharp I'm talking about. It makes no sense.
You gotta know the fact he didn't tell. I see your issue, and I totally agree.
Why do
You gotta tell him.
air?
You gotta tell him you're on air. He didn't tell him.
But the fact, but then why you
whoever that the co-host in the background was, you have to. She's like, can you remind him we're on air? She's like literally telling him, like, yo, tell him we're on air before he says something stupid. And lo and behold, and look, let's be real. As Giants fans, Ian, let's be a little relieved. He said he's definitely not going to Dallas. Because that would just be that'd be a bad time for all of us, actually. With Joey being Eagles, that'd be a bad time for all of us if he went to Dallas.
Be a bad time if he just went to anywhere in the NFC East. But I think Shannon Sharp is absolutely the one at fault here. But I also think he's the same. He's also the same person now that ESPN is going to grant a huge money bonus to now.
Yeah.
Well, his Brooklyn temper would just carry across the Verrazano Bridge to Staten Island, where he currently works. But that he's probably getting a nice little chunk of a payday on top of his check this month because he got Julio Jones to say that if that was, it was. I mean, to get Julio Jones to say that on air. Okay.
makes
But
me
yes,
wonder
that
if it was
is on
kind of
Shannon
the-
Sharp to not tell him ahead of time. But that's also Shannon probably in one way or another, strategically, whether you want to say it or not, basically trying to say, I'm calling you personally while I'm off air. And then after you've told me this breaking news, now I'm going to tell you that the whole world just heard me say it. So
No, honestly, I'm wondering if it wasn't a little scripted. I'm honestly wondering that. Like maybe because if Shannon Sharp's actually serious that Julio Jones is his nephew, maybe they were texting beforehand. And he's like, "Yo, I'm gonna give you a call on the show, say what you want to say or whatever." Maybe
it's possible.
I feel like there's about a 5% chance of that being the real thing.
It's possible. I mean, Baltimore would make sense. Brian
would make
saying that
sense.
Julio Jones needs to go to Baltimore. I don't think that's where he's going to end up going. I think it would be a good spot for him because I think they need that. They need an All-Pro caliber receiver. I mean, even saying that, and you see like a team like Baltimore that has Hollywood Brown and has an All-Pro tight end and Mark Andrews and is real. But I don't know if Baltimore would be the optimal place. I think it would put Baltimore over the top, but I think they're already a contending franchise or a contending team for Super Bowls. With Lamar there and Dobbins is turning into a real special running back. I mean, I think the teams that you have to look at right now in my opinion, if we're going to go down this road for a team that would make sense, New England.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I was going to say
and the team that actually supposedly, according to a report, that to me makes the most sense. I know they've thrown the Rams out there, and that would just really put the Rams over the top because now you've got Stafford throwing the ball to Kupp, Woods, and Julio. But the team, to me, that would make the most sense even over New England because I just don't think, even though New England is not ready to say we're rebuilding, even though they're not ready to win a Super Bowl yet, Tennessee right now. Corey Davis just went to the Jets. That's the team supposedly, according to a report, that is willing to part with the first round draft pick. So I don't think that the Falcons should part with anything less. I mean, ESPN is running these god awful ideas of packages that they would send to Atlanta, none of which include a first round pick. Like New England,
you're not getting Julio Jones for less. I promise you.
No, like first off, remember the Falcons have the leverage. I mean, he's due $15 million this year. And if he holds out, the Falcons don't pay him. Right. So I understand to a certain extent.
And Ian, because of this stupid phone call, Atlanta now has even more leverage.
Yeah,
because now they know exactly what Julio wants.
Well, I know that Julio asked for a trade, and the Falcons were willing to inquire about it. There was no guarantee that he was being traded, but that they would discuss.
Even more leverage for it.
So I don't understand how, like, on any of these projected, like New England for this year's second and Jarrett Stidham, the Falcons aren't in rebuild. No. The Falcons aren't in rebuild. If the Falcons were in rebuild, Matt Ryan wouldn't be there anymore. They would have been done. That project would have been over.
That's a fake package.
They wouldn't have drafted Kyle Pitts. I mean, yeah, they might have because he was the best player there available at 4. But then trade down and just acquire more draft capital if you're in a rebuild. They're not in a rebuild. They're not in a rebuild.
They think they still got some time. Look,
and also Arthur Blank, their owner, said that they weren't in a rebuild either.
Right.
Yeah.
Look,
so I think
they don't have time, but they think they do. I'll say it right now.
I think they've got a year left. I mean, I think defensively they've got serious problems. Defensively, they've got issues. I mean, we saw that the first 2 weeks of the season last year when they were giving up 40+ points and they were blowing big leads. But offensively, I mean, Julio, Calvin Ridley, you add now Kyle Pitts, Todd Gurley. I mean,
and they also
they're as good as most
2 years
teams in the
ago.
league.
Or last year, they also lost Austin Hooper as well. They lost him, and then Kyle Pitts became
Kyle Pitts is more of
a year later.
But Kyle Pitts is more like a wide receiver tight end. So he just loads them up with more and more offensive weapons. So I mean, if I was the Falcons, unless a first round pick is even in the discussion, he doesn't go. I mean, if he wants to hold out. How well did that work out for Antonio Brown down the road?
Yeah, no. So, here's what I think. I think that what the Falcons have to do here is look, if they could fix their defense like right now, they do have they have a playoff shot, definitely. If they fix their defense right now. If they don't fix the defense, they're out of time. This team is out of time. It's aged out. I already think they have personally. But
Well, remember, you got 7 teams going. You got 7 teams that go to the playoffs in each conference.
Right.
So that's
why they
there's
picked
that.
the defense. That's why they
No,
got shot.
I don't think they have the ability to physically outscore teams, but I think they're a team that, if they're healthy, can at least hang around a little bit. I mean, second half of the year, they were a lot better than they were the first half.
That's
So
true.
I personally believe, I'll tell you this. I think that Atlanta is they still have a shot. And the reason why they have a shot is because they also have a possibility at a wild card spot. We have to realize this now. New Orleans is not going to be the same without Drew Brees. That is that's another thing too. And on top of it now, you've got Carolina, you've got Tampa, you've got New Orleans, and right, exactly. So you've got those 4 squads, right? And the crazy part about that, okay, is that, again, we just said the Saints are not going to be the same without Drew Brees. Hell, we don't even know if they can get into, I believe they'll be in playoff contention and they will do whatever, but the playing field and the level of the playing field will be so much better for Atlanta, where they might have one last shot, literally one. That's it. And this is the year. And I don't think, Rob DeLuca, this is the year. I think that they are done. And first, I want to go back, and I just want to make sure for our podcast listeners to hear what Brian Morales has to say. B, thank you very much for always tuning in. We have to have you on. This is there's no now that we're done at Wagner for the season. Okay, we've got to get you on, no exceptions. Hey guys, great show thus far. 100% agree with Joey. It's Sharp's fault, but Julio Jones needs to go to Baltimore. Don't want to see him in the AFC East unless he's wearing jet green. Right. Well, we kind of figured that because
now that I know he's a Jets fan, I really hate to burst his bubble. That when he ends up,
I don't think the Jets would be. I don't think the Jets would be a bad decision. I mean, the Jets.
That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying.
Me, I'm shocked the Jets aren't on that list. I'm shocked. The Jets have all that draft capital. Right.
I thought they would be, but here's the thing: you have to try to outdo a Bill. You have to try to outdo a Bill Belichick at this point, and that's really, really difficult.
Well, in what way though? In what way? I mean, if New England's willing to part with a first, I think he goes to New England, or he goes to, like
Bill
I said,
Belichick
the because they need
the world to get what he wants.
But I think from a standpoint. Well, first off, no. First off, it's all based on package. Number one,
and he's
number
not
two,
going to mortgage the future either.
Yeah. So when you look at a team like the Jets, who are rebuilding, but at the same time trying to rally as many weapons as they possibly can around their new quarterback, and have all the draft capital that they do, why wouldn't you inquire with the Jets and see what they'd be willing to package you? I mean, they've got 2s and 3s. I mean to part with, right?
They got one.
So I mean, the Jets would make sense. I just think of the teams right now that are ready to win now. If he wants to go to a team, and Julio Jones is quoted as saying on that video, "I want to win now." Tennessee makes sense. Corey Davis is gone. Like you need a guy that can stretch the field. Okay, put Julio there opposite AJ Brown. Let AJ Brown run his cross routes, run his slants, and let Julio stretch the field. Fine. It's a perfect.
Brian's right.
Well, not only that, too, it's just, I mean, again, with the New York Jets, we know now that Woody Johnson is back in the president's seat and in the CEO seat. So, B, I'm sure there's going to be much more torture and much more failure moving forward. And clearly, it's very evident. It's very evident as well that it might happen sooner rather than later, because you know what, Ian and DeLuca are correct. Really, the New York Jets should either have called. I mean,
they still might. We don't know.
They still might, because you know what? We'll get to the last comment in just a second that B posted, but I want to just get them in order again for our Apple, Spotify, and iHeartRadio listeners out there. Before we were talking about how Shannon Sharp, how he called obviously Julio Jones, and Brian Morales said, if one of my players did that, good Lord, my Brooklyn temper would hit an all-time high. I can't blame him for that, because you know what? Again, it is just as a PR person, a media relations person, the phone calls, the emails from many media outlets were probably overflowing about 2 seconds after he heard that, or he or she may have heard that in that public relations office. We spoke also about New England being in the mix. Of course, Brian being a New York Jets fan. Please don't speak New England into existence. I mean,
Let me tell
listen.
you why, though.
It's possible. It really is possible, and it could
let
happen
let me tell Brian why. Because here's the thing, Joey, I get your point when you said Bill Belichick can't jeopardize the future. The man's 72 years old. He doesn't care about any future that doesn't involve him.
That's fair.
I don't agree with you. I don't agree with you, Rob. I don't. I think
I feel that. I get it, especially because he's been so loyal to that team. But here's the thing: he will do anything to win one more. So
he should be given like a lifetime contract, like Ed Cooley and Bill Self.
You win one more, you're set for another like you can rebuild for.
You're telling me you look at Julio Jones right now, right? They say New England acquires Julio Jones right now. They're a Super Bowl team. I don't think so.
Not even a little. But
okay, but that's
not even a little. I'm just saying.
They are a playoff team.
Maybe New England, no doubt about it, they would be. New England might think that gets them closer.
Yeah, I would agree.
And they also have to think Mac Jones is gonna be the future real soon. But I agree with Brian. I like Baltimore for Julio Jones. It gives Lamar Jackson someone to catch his poor throws, because Julio Jones can catch pretty much anything. So for a guy like Lamar Jackson, it's the perfect match. It's something that Baltimore could use to put, as Ian said, put them over the top, because Baltimore's waiting to strike, and Julio Jones, I think, does that for them. So I would like to see.
That's a perfect comment from Brian right there, by the way. Perfect.
Well, we're gonna get to that. True. We're going to get to that comment right now, and we're going to dump a little bit again, just so our podcast listeners can understand what we are talking about, because they don't have the visual. Brian said Julio Jones is not the Randy Moss savior, Rob. It's not gonna be an encore.
They weren't the same. They're not the same team. Right. Randy Moss came there when they were the thick of going 16-0. Like that, it's not the. I mean, I agree with Brian's point. I agree with Brian's point, but it's not the same team.
No.
Like if I'm Julio Jones and he's 32 years old, keep in mind. I know. I believe
you got to go win. I don't think
he signed. I think through the next 3 or 4 years.
Look, I don't think we should go to New England. I just think New England's going to make the biggest push for whatever reason. It's just the thing Bill Belichick does. It's just the thing Bill Belichick does.
I'm going to tell you this, though, fellas, is that what New England has done and what they have reconstructed, okay, in the wake of Tom Brady departing, okay, we have to look back at last year, right? Last year was COVID-19, obviously, and it still is. Okay, we're not going to say it's not, but in the thick of the pandemic, okay, we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. We don't want to get off track, but with the NFL, okay, it was still, things gone down, and then people, because we have to realize all of these players are people and human beings. A lot of them were given the ability and the option to opt out. Many players on the New England Patriots opted out. And I remember when we were on this program together, on this podcast together, and when we saw guys drop out, Donta Hightower, Duron Harmon was going to opt out, and then he was traded to Detroit. Then he eventually played. And then you also had not many other guys that were there. If I'm not mistaken, one of the McCourties, they opted out as well. I think it was Jason.
Joe Tooney was another one.
Yeah, exactly right.
A lot of their prime players just gone.
Exactly. But now, which is another reason why that I don't want to say that Julio Jones is going to be that savior, but you've got a lot of these players coming back for New England, okay? But what I will say is that they're not a Super Bowl team, but they are, in my opinion. Do we remember a few years ago when the Indianapolis Colts with Andrew Luck made the AFC Championship game?
Sure.
Okay. We remember that, right? They were not even supposed to be there. They were supposed to be there.
Was that the 41-0 loss to New England we're talking about? Right? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
But
the Deflategate game. Right.
Right. But listen, it doesn't matter, though. And the reason why is because you have a team, I don't want to say constructed like Indianapolis, but the players are not 100% great. You've got talented players that really can get you that can get you far. Do they host a playoff game? No, I don't think so. But I do believe that they can and will stay in contention. And I would not be surprised because especially when money comes off the books at the end of this year too, we know Bill Belichick is one of the best head coaches, general managers in the entire game. He's one of the only ones.
Yeah,
Okay?
we
all know what happened 5 years ago when the Eagles tried doing that with Chip Kelly, and that exploded in their face.
Yeah.
But in terms of Bill, don't smile, please. We all know. Yeah, exactly.
I'm laughing in reaction to that.
Yeah, exactly. We all know what Bill Belichick is capable of, and I would not put it past him if Julio Jones were to do this.
That's what I'm trying to say. I don't know if Bill Belichick does Bill Belichick even know how to rebuild? All he's known is winning for the last 20 years.
That is fair. That is fair. And not only that,
that's where I come. That's where I come from all this.
We also have to look at. Listen, fellas. We also have to look at last year when, if I'm not mistaken, what was the record of the New England Patriots last year?
7-9.
Exactly, 7-9, and they did that with, I would say, less than 75% of their core.
That's correct.
Get these guys back. Get these guys back, and you've got, and hold on, you also had nearly every single offensive lineman in New England opt out or get traded or get hurt.
Right. That's why
these
Cam
guys
was
back
on
in
the
here.
ground.
Get these guys back in here, and I would say you had about 50% healthy Cam Newton following COVID. Get him a full year off of COVID.
Yeah.
Let's just say he stays healthy.
Sure.
You could build a serious case for bringing in Julio Jones.
Yes.
I'll say this. I'm still not sold on Cam Newton in New England. I still did not
Neither
like
am I.
the body language that he would walk the sidelines with. What I know that we had the whole COVID thing with regards to Cam, but
absolutely,
I did not like his body language towards the end of the year at all. When they were kind of trying to teach Stidham, and Cam was just over there acting like the prima donna that he is. So I'm not the biggest advocate
for Taylor Hall, like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah,
exactly.
I'm not like the biggest advocate for Cam in New England. Does Julio Jones make New England Patriots a playoff team? Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say definitely. I think they're already a team on the cusp. I think Julio definitely puts them over the top to get there, or at least has a chance to get there. I don't know if they're a playoff team right now. I mean, I know that's hard to say because we were saying that before.
All depends back.
Yeah, I think it depends what happens with the Colts. It depends what happens with the Steelers. It depends what happens with the Ravens. I mean, those are three teams right now you expect to be in the playoff conversation. I'm not so sure. Like Miami almost made the playoffs last year. You're instantly. I mean, I know it's Belichick, but I'm not so ready to put New England in the playoffs yet.
No.
But I think putting Julio there makes a big difference.
It makes a big difference.
But
it's just something it's just from experience. It's just the thing Bill Belichick does. I'm not saying again.
I just think Tennessee makes the most sense.
I don't advocate for Julio Jones to New England. It's probably one of the last things I want to see. It's just the way we've seen Bill Belichick coach and manage the last 20 years. It's just the thing he does.
I think if you put Julio Jones on the Tennessee Titans 2 years ago, do they beat Kansas City in the AFC Championship?
Yes.
Right. So to me, I think when you look at it that way, why Tennessee, if they're willing to part with that first rounder, and I don't think Atlanta should jump off that ship at any point, because you look at the relationship between the Steelers and Antonio Brown, and I'm not saying that the Falcons are trying to do right by their receiver that's been there for a decade, but clearly the Falcons are still trying to win. So I just think do I think he ends up in Tennessee? No, but I think Tennessee is the perfect spot for him.
That comes to my point, Ian, when I was talking earlier about Lamar Jackson being like a perfect match for him because Julio Jones catches anything thrown to him. Same thing with Ryan Tannehill. Exact same thing, and he could literally catch anything Tannehill throws to him. And it wouldn't all have to be on Derrick Henry at that point.
Well, that's my point. That's the other part of it. Like, think about how much of a monster Derrick Henry's been the last 2 years, and how inefficient he was in their game against Baltimore because Corey Davis was nowhere to be found.
Right.
Put Julio Jones out there. I know Julio has not. I mean, he's 3 years removed from his last 1,000-yard season. He really has not been the same receiver he's been the last few years.
Well, no.
I'm not. That's not me saying he's regressed. Right. That's not me saying he's been regressing. But. Okay, I think that if you put Julio out there with AJ Brown, I mean, I know Jonnu Smith's now in New England, so now you've got to pay attention to Julio a little bit more, and that's going to do a whole lot more now for Derrick Henry too.
Yeah, as well as Hunter Henry in New England as well. So really good stuff there. Let's go back to the comments with Brian. I want to make sure that we get to all of them. We were talking about earlier about Woody Johnson and the Jets possibly not making a phone call, and Brian says another term he does not like hearing: Woody Johnson back. So for all the Jets fans out there, we can completely understand that. Something else also that we were discussing earlier about with Atlanta. We were talking about how, they may have one more year to go in terms of contention. Well, we brought up about the personnel that they've got. Well, there's a possibility, and a good possibility, that Todd Gurley is talking to Detroit, and he most likely will not be back. They now actually just signed Mike Davis from Carolina. That right now is their signed lead back, and their only back signed that has NFL experience. So who knows what goes on with Atlanta, but clearly Julio wants out. In terms of someone that is close to the family, Robert DeLuca, Mr. DeLuca, here we go. Julio Jones add complexity to opposing defensive game plan. Take him lightly and you get burned. Yeah, you said that perfectly.
You do.
And I like I said, I just think that he would really be a fit anywhere, a plus anywhere. I don't know if he'd be a fit in Tennessee. I mean, especially, again, they're a run-first team. They're a run-first team, and we know that. Could Mike Vrabel change up the game plan? I mean, I don't know.
Do you think Julio Jones at 32 years old, though, is saying, get me the ball, me, or is it right now about him trying to win?
I think he just wants to win.
Then what's wrong with Tennessee?
Well, then there's nothing wrong with Tennessee and that's fine. If it was the me attitude, then there's no doubt about it. Tennessee.
Go to San Francisco. Go, you want
to
win now.
You
want to win now? Go to LA. You want to win now? Go to the Rams. You want to win now? Go to Tennessee. You want to go to Baltimore.
You want to win now? Go to the Ravens. It really is that point. That Julio Jones would put the Ravens over the top as a Super Bowl contender.
Well, I mean, again, I don't know. I do have to agree with you there, no doubt about it. It's just there's so many question marks in Atlanta, so many question marks for Julio Jones' future, and I can't wait to preview it when football season comes back around because now it is Memorial Day weekend. It is baseball.
Don't blink. Exactly. I was just gonna say, don't blink because it'll be here.
Exactly, because the unofficial start of summer, exactly what Ian Schraier did say, is this weekend, Memorial Day. Okay, get your barbecues out, and really, right now, fellas, baseball season is here as well. Let's transition over to the diamond and America's pastime, ladies and gentlemen. And we were discussing last week, Ian, Rob, and myself, about the Tampa Bay Rays. And if this is even a conversation to talk about, and I took the executive decision to put this in, and I'll tell you why. Well, they won 11 straight games. And the reason why I said that I wanted to put this in here in terms of our talking points is because Tampa Bay had traded away Blake Snell. Okay. They let Charlie Morton walk, and they continue to put the pressure on every single major league team. And yes, I know Ian wrote this. In their last 14 games, they went 13-1.
I did not write that.
I wrote it.
Okay, so that was DeLuca. Not that impressive considering who they played. Mets, Orioles, Blue Jays, Royals. It doesn't matter. Your roster on paper is a AAA team, and you're winning against these major league teams. Give credit where credit is due, folks. The Tampa Bay Rays. No, I'm serious.
Wait.
Yeah,
no,
go on.
Wait, you call the Rays a AAA team? Look who they just played. They played
matter.
The injury.
Does not matter.
Injury-ridden Mets. The Mets put out a AAA team. The Orioles are a AA team.
Yes.
Who are the Kansas City Royals anymore? And
the Kansas City Royals are an up-and-coming AAA team. The Kansas City Royals are an up-and-coming AAA team with Andrew Benintendi there. Okay, the Baltimore Orioles are a low A team. Okay, that if they can't beat them, then they've got problems.
All right, so how do you not win these games?
No. Listen. The fact of the matter is that I said on paper their roster is below average. And yet they are continuing to put the pieces together to show who's boss. It doesn't matter. Look at Toronto. Don't try and tell me that Toronto is a trash team.
No. That was the only impressive part of it. That's the only impressive part.
But it doesn't matter, though. The Kansas City Royals they are not a – they're – okay.
They're the team that took the game off the Rays.
Okay, but you know what, though? Exactly. But it also shows, too, that Kansas City is there as well to play the game.
They're not the same. Yeah, they're not the pre and post 2015 Royals. They're not the pre and post 2015 Royals. No. They are. This is an up and coming Royals team. I will say that, but they're still not that good yet. So, and while the Rays did regress, they are not worse than any of those teams listed besides the Blue Jays. They should have beaten them, and they did.
Well, that's what good teams do, Rob. I mean, good teams beat the teams below them. I mean, I think that's when we get to the point about the Mets. That's the same point I made about the Mets a couple of weeks ago. I said, they're in first place, but they're beating the teams below them, which is what good teams who have championship aspirations are supposed to do. But it's not like the Rays are being cheated either. They're averaging 7.5 runs per game over this stretch, whether the teams you're playing are bad or not. So, like, you know what? Whether you're playing the Royals, the Orioles, the Jays, an injury-riddled Mets squad, whatever you want to call it, it's not like they're averaging 2 to 3 runs per game and are getting by on their really strong bullpen, and they're getting contributions still from Michael Wacha as a 4 or a 5 starter. They're averaging close to 8 runs per game. That's pretty impressive. I mean, they got G-Man Choi just came back, so he's a huge piece to add back into that lineup. I mean, Arozarena is crushing the ball. I mean, they're a gritty bunch. They are. That's what we said last year.
I think in our preview, we didn't give them enough. We honestly didn't give this team enough credit because we saw all the losses they took this offseason. We figured they were going to regress hard. And because of this streak, they are not. They are staying on track, and honestly, they're in first place right now by about half a game. It's a 3-team race right now in the AL East between Tampa Bay, Boston, and New York, which at this point, it's starting to look like we were all completely wrong the way this is going with the AL East, because we thought the Yankees would run away with it, and here they are. I mean, they're in the race. They're only a game back, but Boston was supposed to be in last place, or fourth place rather, and the Blue Jays are hanging in the race, as Ian smartly predicted. But I think that, I'm not discrediting Tampa Bay. I just think that they beat the teams they were supposed to, and good teams do that. And I think you give the Yankees you give a team like the Yankees or the Dodgers the same stretch, they'll do the same thing.
No, I don't think so. Nope.
Well, I mean, if you want to go with the way the Yankees bats have been, I wouldn't blame you. And the Yankees injury bug is returning low.
Wait, Rob, are you trying to compare like the Rays right now to the Yankees or the Dodgers? Is that like the comparison?
No, I'm saying in terms of if you gave the elite teams a stretch of games like that the Rays got, I think you would see similar results.
No, you wouldn't.
I don't necessarily believe that. I mean, look, the Dodgers have one of the best run differentials in the league, but I think still pulling off a stretch like that is not easy.
No, it's not necessarily easy, but it's just.
It'd be one thing if you're getting by. It'd be one thing if you're pulling games out of your rear end. This team is not doing that. Like, when you look at the last 14 games they've played, it's not like the final scores of these games have been 2-1, 3-1, 2-0.
Well, the Royals series was
1-0 in 10, 1-0. Well, but 1-0 in 10 innings. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
Like they're putting up 8, 9, 10, almost 8, 9, 10 runs a night. I mean, I don't think that's necessarily a fluke or the fact that they're just playing bad teams.
Now I'll ask you guys, are they going to be able to, in order to keep up this stretch, that offense is going to have to remain. And right now, I think the only team offense we've seen consistently do that this season is Boston's.
Toronto can mash, man. Toronto can mash. I mean, every night.
Let's not forget, Boston is only supposed to win 80 games, like 80 games at best. They're in first place.
Hold on a minute, fellas. I just want to throw out this one statistic here. The Tampa Bay Rays are 18-14 against teams greater than 500. That's number one. Number two, Toronto Blue Jays, okay, they have not seen George Springer for the better part of, I don't know, a month and a half, and he played what? 1 game for them, 2 games for them, I think.
Yeah.
Has he even yet? I'm not even sure he has.
I don't even know if he has.
I don't even think he has yet.
So okay, so they're 25 and 24 right now. They're in the race. They're in whatnot, right? But what I want to go back to what Rob DeLuca said earlier about the New York Yankees. If they were given that stretch, and I just want to clarify this, DeLuca, because I want to make sure that we are hearing. All right, if you say give the Yankees the schedule that the Rays had, could they do it? Is that what you're saying, that the Yankees can pull off that exact feat?
I said yes. That I think that they could do that.
Completely disagree.
Well, the way on paper they're supposed to, but as we've seen from on-field performance this year, they clearly can't. But on paper, they should. On paper, their run differential should not be plus 20. It should be plus 77, like the Los Angeles Dodgers, or plus 79, like San Diego Padres. But here we are. And now, speaking of the Yankees, you do make a point there, because here's the thing with the Yankees right now. The pitching has been, over the past, since we last met, the pitching has been stellar. Starters went 35 straight innings without giving up a run, which I haven't even heard of.
Corey Kluber pitched baseball immortality the first time since David Wells.
I had never seen one live before. I had never seen one from my team live before. So that was epic.
Of course not. We were 3 years old when David Wells when David Wells pitched that. And how old were we? Were 2 when David Cohn pitched?
Four. You have that inverse. You have that inverse.
Okay.
Yeah, but yes, nonetheless, yeah, we finally got to see one.
Ian was 30 when he saw Johan Santana. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. And you've had
I was like 15 when I watched David Wells pitch that perfect game. Please stop.
Yeah, we get it. We get it. We get it. We're young. You're old. All right.
Yes, Brian. Yes, Brian. Yes. Brian and I are the same age, or just about. And yes, Brian, 110%.
OMG, seriously, Brian says yes, absolutely.
But as we transition now to our local teams, Joey, we gotta, since you mentioned the Yankees, we gotta think about this. The Yankees, my father's comment.
Mr. DeLuca, in comparison to them, I might as well have an AARP card.
Ian, I am old. You're a kid. Robert DeLuca.
Yeah, beautiful.
Oh man,
that
is
go to the Yankees. Pitching's been lights out, and you know how some of those those fans that think they know everything on the social medias and all that, and they're like, oh my God, we got to fix this pitching. We got to fix this pitching. You know what? We got to fix this hitting. This lineup, as you said, Joey, should have a run differential of almost 80. And they have a run differential of 20. Where are the bats on this supposed super team? Where did the offense go?
Where have the bats been, Rob, the last 2 years, 3 years?
That too. That's what I've wondered.
But you're asking, where are the bats on this team?
It's home runs or nothing.
Rob,
unless you're DJ LeMahieu.
It's the starting pitching. Everyone's like,
super team. It's been the same lineup for 3 years.
Right.
Nothing's changed.
It's the start. Everyone's like, it's the starting pitching. It's the starting pitching. Where's the clutch hitting? Where has been hitting in the clutch? I haven't seen it. I don't think Joey's seen it. I know my father hasn't seen it. So what the Yankees need to do here is to get this supposed super team, get their offense going. That's what will win this game. Granted, the Yankees have been one of the best teams in baseball the last 2 weeks. They haven't lost a series since April, but we're still not. It's because of the pitching that the Yankees have not lost a series since April. The hitting needs to find its way. And Joey, does a trade need to be mustered up? Because now let's think about the injuries here. The bug has hit the Yankees once again. Aaron Hicks out for the season. Luke Voit out for 2 months. Corey Kluber out for 2 months. So once again, because of all these injuries for the 3rd year in a row, what does Brian Cashman have to do? What does he got to do this time to essentially fix this?
At this point, Aaron Hicks might be the odd man out. At this point, Aaron Hicks might be the odd man out. You might have to eat money. And lifelong New York Yankees fan, Brian Morales, 100% Rob, yes, trade. Problem, Problem with that though,
Yeah, right.
hold on a minute, because now we have taken our conversation from the Tampa Bay Rays of New York Yankees, which we know can extend another 2 hours, but we'll conclude this here, folks. If the Yankees make a trade, they will not go over the luxury tax.
No, they won't. They won't do that
already. So $190 million, done. That's it. Finito.
They won't.
And the problem is that you've got so much money tied up into Giancarlo Stanton and Garrett Cole. So a big chunk of that 190 is gone already. I think, if I'm not mistaken, that's nearly $80 million gone.
Nothing.
So now that leaves you with $110 million to play with for another 24 guys. That's a problem when you still have to sign Aaron Judge, and I would not be surprised here. Excuse me, where
I know what you're going to say, and I'm about to agree with you wholeheartedly.
I wouldn't be surprised if you're going to see a player like an Aaron Judge or a Gleyber Torres get shipped out to get younger guys to stay under that threshold, because you are now locked into a Stanton and into Cole for if it'll feel like
and LeMahieu.
LeMahieu,
DJ's the greatest hitter of all time, and should be here forever and ever because he's a god. All right, but nonetheless. But nonetheless, Joey, I'm going to say something, and I'm probably about to piss off every Yankees fan of all ever here. Don't touch Gleyber Torres. He is 23 years old. Keep Gleyber Torres. Trade Aaron Judge. That's who the odd man out should be there. With Hicks gone, get Judge out. Torres got to stay. Brian Morales with that comment there was thinking that as well. Trade Judge. Torres, Gleyber Torres has to be untouchable, honestly. He's 23 years old. He's a kid, and he's still growing.
And you get nothing for Gary at this point. I mean,
and Gary's essentially worth nothing right now, which also is a problem for the Yankees, that they have a catcher's problem.
According to your son, DJ LeMahieu is Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, and
that's right, he is.
And Babe Ruth.
The man's getting 4,500 hits. Pete Rose, be damned. DJ LeMahieu's coming for the record.
Well, Brian Morales also says that the Yankees need to pull the trigger on Delino DeShields for the outfield.
Yeah, They do need an outfielder. I was just going to say that. With Hicks out for the year, they need another outfielder. The depth is low.
Yeah, I know Delino DeShields was out there as a discussion, as like a starter when they announced Hicks was going down. But again, it's May. This is the same reason that we're not seeing teams that want to pull the trigger right now on a move are going to pay handsomely.
Right? No, you can't,
because then you're getting desperate and so they can take advantage.
I'm not saying right this second now, but if the injury bug keeps hitting the Yankees the way it has the last 2 years, and it's looking like it's going to do it again, it's got to be soon.
Rob, I mean, look, they're going to be. I mean, they're going to be if they don't win the division, they're going to be a wild card team. Like, it's not.
Oh, I'm not. If
you know what I'm saying? Like they can wait.
Boston keeps up the offense. I'm not worried about the playoffs.
No, but that's my point to you is like they can afford to wait until July if they really want to pull.
Right? No, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying they'll wait a little bit, but
they're going to give those reps to Brett Gardner. There's no doubt about it. What he has
this might be Gardner's last. This might be Brett Gardner's last dance. So I think so. As a biased Yankees fan, I hope they can somehow figure this out and go out on top, because. And thank God the stadiums are getting full again, because what happened to Drew Brees with his send-off was a crime that only 700 people got to see it in person. Thankfully, the Yankee Stadium will essentially be full by the time that day rolls around for Brett Gardner.
That is definitely true. But your dad actually forgot, or actually Ian forgot to add one of the legendary Major League Baseball players, and Mr. DeLuca actually filled in the blank there. Forgot about Joe DiMaggio.
Oh, DiMaggio. You want me to add Ty Cobb in there too while we're at it?
Why add Honus Wagner in there? Might as well.
We are a great professional sports podcast, but we also got to remind the people we're here to have fun. We like to make our jokes sometimes. It's just got to be the way it is. If you don't have fun with it, what's the point of doing it?
Rob is just a terrible influence. That's
and not only that. Well, that cannot be discussed on this podcast. Number one, but we have to also have, and for those folks that are out there that know Rob DeLuca Jr.'s antics, he also knows that there should be a special show for certain legends of certain teams, and that those are usually the worst players ever to exist on a specific franchise. We have to have a specific show just for that, where Rob DeLuca lists off the greatest or the worst New York Yankees of all time, and he will consider those
I
legends.
do better than New Jersey Devils, but sure, bring it on.
That is
You know that Twitter that Twitter handle, random sports athletes. That should just be the focus of Rob's next show. Is just talking about
let that be
whoever.
my burner account. Let that be my burner account. let me run that account for a few days.
Brian Morales is in. Absolutely, I want to be on that show. Gladly.
I love it.
So
I just don't agree with him calling Robbie Cano overhyped. But sure, but
So Ian, do you not know the Yankees mentality? Panic alert since mid-February, haha. And Rob just saying, Gleyber Torres strikes me as Alfonso Soriano / Robinson Cano. Overhyped, get what you can.
Ooh. No, I see difference. You
want to call Soriano overhyped? Yes, I agree with you there.
Yeah, Alfonso
not Robbie Cano.
Legendary Chicago Cubs left fielder. Alfonso Soriano.
Or talking about
legendary Texas Ranger Alfonso Soriano.
Yankee Alfonso Soriano. We talking second.
Did he only have really one big hit in his career, which was the 2001 Game 7 home run in the top of the ninth before the D-backs came back? Or was it the eighth? I don't remember what inning.
I think that was it. Yeah,
I think that was the only big hit of his career.
That was it. But Brian actually has the number one for that show, which would be Kevin Moss. So, I digress there, and let's keep moving on here, fellas. Brian and Mr. DeLuca.
Ian's Mets, maybe.
What?
I think we need to talk about Ian's Mets a little bit, no?
We kind of do, and that's actually where we are going to conclude our show. We still have two more segments, which is our kudos, the latter portion of that. But we also have to speak about the New York Mets because, Ian, you want to talk about panic mode, Brian. There's some Mets here, and I'm not calling Ian out specifically. I'm talking about Mets fans in general because this was supposed to be the year where the Mets were supposed to be really good, brand new owner, Cookie Carrasco, Francisco Lindor, Trevor May, just so many players from top to bottom. Another year, Pete Alonso, Dom Smith in left field. When he was really, he couldn't play. He couldn't play baseball. He was absolutely terrible years ago. But now, let's not forget about Noah Syndergaard, where let's be honest here. Okay. He had surgery last year, out until August. Exactly. A Tommy John surgery out until originally was July. And now a 6-week shutdown due to elbow inflammation. The big question here is that how far can the Mets go without Carlos Cookie Carrasco and without Noah Syndergaard? How much can you rely on your starters? Jacob deGrom, Marcus Stroman. How can you rely on these guys and for how long? Ian Schraier, I want to start with you.
I think they can rely on their pitching. I don't know if they can necessarily rely on the current stature of their hitting. I think that's the key. I mean, obviously, Mets fans have not had their appetite fed well enough regarding Francisco Lindor and his struggles at this point. But yet somehow with these call-ups and these bench additions, as the Mets call them, the bench mob, like players, as we mentioned a few weeks ago, like Jonathan Villar, Jose Peraza, and then calling up guys for defense that have made great defensive plays like Janeshwi Fargas and Khalil Lee, who they acquired in the trade for the Steven Matz trade, who they got back with Kansas City. I think that for the Mets, the lineup, they need the lineup back and healthy. They need JD Davis back. 60% of their starting position players are on the IL. Jeff McNeil's hurt. Dom Smith is hurt. Pete Alonso's hurt. McCann's not batting his weight. JD Davis is out. Nimmo's out. Conforto's out. I mean, you look at the entire defensive alignment for the Mets and almost the entire team, with the exception of Lindor and McCann and Dom Smith right now, are like I said, 60%, maybe actually a little less if you don't count the pitcher spot, are all on the IL. So I think that's the piece for them. I mean, they're getting by on their pitching. They are. I don't know how it's possible. I don't know how it's possible that DeGrom, Stroman, and Stroman wasn't. DeGrom and Taijuan Walker were on the IL, and yet somehow this team is 2.5 games up in first place and 4 games over 500. It's just mind-boggling to me. And Edwin Diaz save and perfect in save opportunities this year. I think with Syndergaard, Syndergaard hasn't been the same pitcher he's been in 5 years. I'm one of the Met fans that's realistic about that and says, listen, Noah Syndergaard has not been the same pitcher since 2016. He just hasn't. I think he's just became such a one-pitch pitcher. And good hitters, especially major league ball hitters, are just going to learn to time your fastball. And I think that, he couldn't get his breaking balls over for strikes, and he just became, like I said, a one-pitch pitcher. So for Syndergaard, losing him is tough. I honestly think his career might be over. Truthfully, honestly,
Wow.
I don't know how you can expect coming off Tommy John and then being shelved when you were ahead of time and now you're getting pushed back again till August. I mean, you can't throw 100 miles an hour and not have your elbow or shoulder fall off. I mean, we saw it. I mean, the perfect example of that is Joel Zumaya. I mean, the guy threw 102 miles an hour years ago for the Tigers, and the guy blew out his shoulder. I mean, he blew out his arm. He couldn't throw anymore. So, I mean, guys like Syndergaard, who were touted as being able to throw 100 plus, triple digits plus, if you can't throw other pitches, guess what? You constantly throwing 100 miles an hour, 100 pitches every single night. Guess what? Something's gonna be off. Your body just can't take that kind of violent action for so long. So, I wouldn't be surprised if this was it for Syndergaard. I hope he does come back if this team is in the playoff hunt come September. But I don't think losing Syndergaard is, not having. I think getting Carrasco back is important because they need a 4-5 guy right now, with, Peterson's struggles, and Lucchese's been better, but again, he's not consistent. So, but I think they're fine in the top three and they're great in the bullpen. It's just the key is getting one of those pitchers back or trying to acquire someone at the deadline to fill that 4-5 spot and just getting that lineup back healthy at this point.
Maybe they should acquire Mets legend Michael Wacha, Rob DeLuca. Let's keep on.
Yeah.
Your thought.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with Ian here. I think it's this injury bug is not easy, and I kind of gotta agree with Ian about Syndergaard here. This poor guy. I mean, look, I feel for him, but Ian's right. You Tommy John surgery, and now you've blown.
Not everyone recovers.
No, yeah, and
not everyone recovers.
You can't throw smoke like that all the time and not expect it to essentially fall off, as Ian said. But now, Ian, as I bring this question to you, it's very interesting. I mean, I won't call it a cushy lead, but through all of this, the Mets are 2.5 games up in the division. And my question to you is, how?
Well, the Braves haven't hit their stride. That's what it is. I mean, Ronald Acuna is the best player in all of baseball, period. I think at this point he's even better than Trout. He's just an incredible. Look. He's the MVP last year. If Freddie Freeman doesn't have the year he has, I mean, the guy is single-handedly keeping that team afloat. I guess if you want to say on a talent level, they're probably equal. I'm just probably showing a little bit of my bias by calling Acuna the best player in baseball because I really do think he is. What's that?
You're a Mets fan. I'd call that unbiased.
Because I'm talking about a Braves player, but
that's what I was going to say.
The Marlins. We knew that the Marlins were going to not. I don't want to call them a flash in the pan, but that over 162 game season was going to be tough for them to be as a playoff team. The Nationals are getting nothing right now out of Josh Bell or Kyle Schwarber.
So even through all the injuries,
and then their rotation right now is a disaster again. I mean, right now Scherzer's in trade talks. Strasburg can never seem to stay healthy. Corbin is not, has not refound his form from a couple of years ago. The one team that I expect to be right behind us at this point is the Phillies. Zach Wheeler's been top notch for them, and guys like Bryce and Real Muto are just kind of keeping them in the discussion. I think it's going to be, I think when we get to the dog days of July and August, if the Mets aren't hitting their weight, then I think Mets are going to have a problem. Right. But I think come the summertime, as we get further and further into the season post All-Star break, I think it's going to be even difficult for the Phillies. Aside from how well their bullpen's pitching, just to keep up with that,
they'll need the magic man. They'll need the magic managing that they currently have in their manager, but he'd have to start showing something.
No, I just don't think they're built right now. I just don't think they're built.
Not the Mets, the Phillies.
Yeah. He's talking about Girardi, but I just don't think that the Phillies are built long term. I mean, after Nola and Wheeler, it's a disaster in that rotation, and I still think their offense is built completely on two guys that are gonna go cold at some point. So if I think it's going to be a very interesting summer if the Mets are still in first place at that point. Come end of July trade deadline and see what the Mets do and see where the Phillies are at that point.
Right.
But I truly expect the Braves to get right back in the discussion sooner rather than later. This is very unlike Atlanta and completely throwing me for a loop.
All right,
Rob
Ian,
DeLuca, finish this off.
Yeah, Ian, one more because we got to let we got to get the we've bothered our great listeners long enough. Got to get to our kudos, get out of here. But Cameron Maybin, Yankees legend, the Mets paid $1 for him. Has he even been worth that dollar yet, Ian? Because from what I have been told, as of last night, he's 0 for 26 since getting.
I did want to mention this in my Mets points, and I'll be quick.
Hitting third, he hits third.
Well, he hit third the day that he got called up, but I want
the Mets paid $1. What?
They paid $1 to get him.
I mean, I'll mention this part about it. I want to give credit to Sandy Alderson and Zach Scott in the Mets front office because they did not go overboard and try to sell the farm, to replace players now. And the hope was that they'd be able to tread water enough. I think they're going to get, if they're not healthy by then, or at least start getting players back by next week, I think they're going to be in for a real because they've got 3 games coming up at home against Atlanta. Obviously, the one tonight got postponed, but they supposedly they still have 2 more left this weekend. Then they're going to go to Arizona for 3 against a team that has lost their last 10. But after that, I mean, if they're not back at close to full health, they're going to get a real shot in the face when they go play 4 games in San Diego. So I think this is a stretch where the Mets. I don't want to say the Mets have to go in and sweep Arizona, but I think sweeping Arizona is almost a must, like they did at home. It's tough on the road, and I think they need to at least split. With DeGrom probably throwing one of these 2 games if they don't make up the game from Friday. With Atlanta, I think 4-1 in their next 5 and being 28-21 going into that series with San Diego's is important because if this team struggles against Atlanta and then struggles on the road against Arizona and is playing like San Diego 7 times in the next 9 games and starts falling under 500, Mets fans are going to start hitting the panic button.
Ooh, well, in that case, let's conclude our main portion of the program on hitting the panic button, because it's funny when you think of the Pittsburgh Pirates, when you see certain plays and you say, well, maybe the panic button is just what we continuously press, or it's just what we are known to press, and the panic button is always there. But I think the panic button is long gone after this play where Javier Baez, Chicago Cubs shortstop Javier Baez, did, let's just call it phenomenal in terms of baseball IQ. Let's watch this clip.
Baez hits it on the ground to third. Gonzalez. This is so good. Oh my goodness. Wow, you gotta be kidding me. You've gotta be kidding me. They stole a run. You have gotta be kidding me. Javi Baez.
Keep going. Go. You're invisible.
El Mago indeed.
That is unbelievable.
That is incredible.
Now, I texted Anthony Iaposti after this, and I won't say the response that I got on air here, but for those that don't know, Anthony Iaposti is the Chicago Cubs hitting coach who works with Javier Baez every single day. So we'll leave it at that. But what I mean, now we'll get into our kudos segment, because Ian Schraier has a kudos that he would like to bring up here.
My kudos go to the Pittsburgh Pirates just on being the Pittsburgh Pirates. I mean, the wherewithal to not realize there were two outs in the inning, and just step on first base. I first off, you know what? The only time I'll give the Pirates credit is I did not even know you could do this. I always thought, I mean, I know you're in the runner's path. I never knew when you're running to first base that you could physically backtrack, and not be called, and not be called out. That's a rule. Almost 37 years later, I've never heard
down at first base before.
I didn't even know you could do it. I mean, as far as I was concerned, you backtrack it, you're automatically out. That's just my opinion, but clearly that rule doesn't exist. So 37 years of baseball, I know absolutely nothing. All I know is now you can actually run backwards, and we're going to see that play a whole lot more in baseball now, especially now that the players know you can do that. But yeah, my kudos
just a butt fumble, a run for its money as the not top 10 play of the plays. Like butt fumble had like a 48-week streak or something. Oh. This might give it a run for the money.
So my kudos just go to the Pirates on being the Pirates, because there's no other team in baseball this would have happened to, maybe besides the Mets.
No, the Baltimore Orioles could do it as well.
Yeah, but I mean, the Pirates have just become such a I don't even call them a struggling franchise. They're just a franchise that's just built on embarrassment at this point, and it's that to me is just kind of the cherry on top. And congratulations, Pirates, great job. That's all.
So not only that, but this is something that I personally believe that we are going to see in every single level of baseball.
100%.
From Little League upward. I would not be surprised. And they will look at Javier Baez and say, this is a guy that we've idolized for many years growing up. And now this just adds another thing that we like about him. And it's the quick mentality that he had, where he was able to go back and forth. And then on top of it, the Pirates catcher overthrew the first baseman. It was absolutely wild to see.
I mean, Javi Baez doesn't realize it. He just revolutionized the game, right?
Yeah, that is true. Rob DeLuca, your kudos goes to?
My kudos goes to all the teams filling their arenas up right now. You know, it's been a rough year. We all know it. It's been so rough. 2020 stunk. It was terrible. 2021 start was all right, you know, but now we're finally there. Vaccinations are out. People are getting them. We're going to reach the peak community. Stadiums are getting full. The NFL is going to start the season 100%. That is great news. It's going to be a lot of fun. You can catch the Primetime Rundown live from MetLife Stadium, Giants Eagles in November. It's gonna be cold. It's going to be a couple days after Thanksgiving, and it's going to be epic. And if it's out, it's right now slated to be a 1:00 game. If there's a legitimate playoff race, that'll get flexed. So it'll be either like a 4:30 or an 8:00. It's going to be great, and it's just so great to see normalcy coming back. Let's go.
So my kudos, which Rob DeLuca is not really a fan of, but my kudos goes out to Premier League of Darts winner Johnny Clayton, who is also known as the Ferret. Okay, he took down Jose De Souza by a score of 11-5, and the reason why I use darts as my kudos is because I literally had nothing on my plate that I would be able to use. Now, folks out there, a score of 11-5 in darts, please let me know what that means. All I know is that he won the entire Premier League of Darts. So kudos to him. Great job. And he deserves my kudos. So I really think that, you know, like I said, I got to do a better job next week when we come back and we do a Monday night show. Oh, the cat's out of the bag, folks. Monday nights will be our new start for our summer shows. And Monday nights, it is not confirmed yet when we will start our Monday night show. But what we do know is that we will be taking a couple of days off, the three of us. We will be convening together, and we will be trying to figure out that Monday night. We will definitely be keeping everyone posted on when the first Monday show will be, and that will be coming to you live, on the Eastern Observer and Blackjack TV, as well as I-95 Sports Network, Zingo Channel 199, on Monday night starting at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So let's get to our credits here, folks. And for all of those that are listening on the podcast, thank you so much or listening on podcast streaming services. Thank you very much. And for those that are watching us, please subscribe to us on Google Play, Apple Podcasts, as well as Spotify and iHeartRadio. And if you're listening, search us, I-95 Sports Network, for more details. Also, ladies and gentlemen, as well, for the Essential Wrestling Podcast, please subscribe to them as well. Google Play, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio. Be sure to join them on Tuesday night on June 1st. Can't believe it. It is going to be June 1st on Tuesday. Join them at 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time as Al Carl, Ryan Joy, John DeConnie, John Smith, as well as Gary Mehefe will be there to get you all of the latest news in the world of wrestling. Join our partner, a partner in crime for Minutes to Bell Time, Ryan Joy, as daily wrestling news show comes to you live every morning, Monday through Thursday, starting at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, right here on the Eastern Observer. Be sure also on Sunday, it is the AEW Double or Nothing post show, 11:30. If you're up late, be sure to write a few comments to him as he will be getting that show underway. Tomorrow morning also, I did not upload the graphics there, but join us in our partnership with the New York Professional Scouts Association as we highlight former Miami Marlins senior advisor of player personnel, as well as Toronto Blue Jays pro scout Paul Ricciarini, who was the one to sign and get George Bell to his excellence for the Toronto Blue Jays. He is in the Toronto Blue Jays level of excellence as well in the Rogers Center. So very cool stuff there for George Bell tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, right here on the Eastern Observer. Please be able to join us there. So, ladies and gentlemen, one final time, Ian Schraier, Rob DeLuca, I'm Joey Jarzynka. For all of us at the Eastern Observer and the Blackjack Media Group, we'll see you next time.